It's estimated that roughly half of all homeless young adults in the U.S. are gay, bisexual, or transgender. Gay kids have often fled or been kicked out by their families. Well, the Ruth Ellis Center in Highland Park, Michigan, near Detroit, is trying to reach them to help keep them safe and off the streets. Kyle Norris of Michigan Radio reports on one part of the center's outreach strategy: dance.
First, a lesson on how to vogue.
It's all about your wrist and your imagination. You just have to make sure your hands are coordinating with your imagination.
That's 21-year-old dancer Donnie Dawson, who says pretend you're holding a basketball and then mime with your hands the circular shape of the ball. Vogue dancing is sort of like break dancing meets ballet. But if you need a quick reference, think of Madonna's 1990 hit. Strike a pose. Madonna was singing about an art form created by poor and working-class blacks and Latinos in New York City's gay community in the 60s and 70s. It's still all about flipping, dipping, and catwalking. And the art form is acrobatic, sexual, and at times very feminine in its movements. Today, we're in a big room upstairs at the Ruth Ellis Center. The floor vibrates because the house music on the speakers is that ear-splitting. 22-year-old Matthew Dawson is wearing sunglasses inside, and he's dancing by himself in a corner.
One of the emotions that I say I put into my Vogue would maybe be anger. I feel like I put it into Vogue so I won't have to put it into other things that are not very constructive.
He says if he danced like this in the outside world, he would not be safe. And the mostly black, queer dancing kids in this room are not safe. The National Alliance to End Homelessness says there are 500,000 kids under age 24 who are homeless for more than 1 week. And between 40 to 60% of those kids are LGBTQ. Once a homeless kid hits the streets, whether they're gay or straight, they're at risk for getting involved with all kinds of bad things,
including violence, sexual assault, being propositioned for prostitution, are at higher risk for using substances.
Jessie Fullenkamp is Director of Outreach Services at the Ruth Ellis Center. She says queer kids are often kicked out by their birth families, and they can face discrimination and hostility when trying to get help from formal organizations. That's why a group of professionals created the Ruth Ellis Center.
Attorneys, teachers, social workers who saw LGBTQ youth falling through the cracks in all of these systems, in our families, in our schools, and job opportunities, and realized that we really needed to pay special attention to this community.
So the drop-in center always makes a space available for dancing.
And then that's kind of the hook that gets a lot of the youth in the door initially, and that's why they come.
Then the center can connect them with counseling, health services, tutoring, and clean clothes. And these kids need the help. 65% of them have traded sex for money or drugs or food. Vogue dancing isn't just this thing that gets kids into the Ruth Ellis Center. It's its own complex world. And in it, people form teams known as houses, as dancer Donnie Dawson explains.
When that relationship is really close and really tight, it turns into a family to where it extends far beyond any ballroom. If I'm stranded somewhere and I need some help, I can call you and you'll be there.
His gay mother is LaKyra Dawson. She's a transgender woman. Both LaKyra and Donnie are regulars at the center, and he has taken her last name as his own. LaKyra has pushed Donnie and his siblings to pursue their educations, in part because LaKyra dropped out of high school. She ran away from home at age 13 and spent 10 years on the streets.
That's a lot of things to know and see and do and experience. So my mistakes, I use that as, the rule book. Like, don't do this, stay away from that.
Donnie Dawson says LaKyra has given him so much guidance about his education and life choices.
I call her mama because the knowledge that I get from her is way far beyond gay life.
This relationship is also incredibly meaningful to Donnie because last year, his birth mother died. The Ruth Ellis staff admits that providing a safe place to dance is a very intentional part of their strategy. The center helps about 5,000 young people each year. The idea is that through dance, they can meet kids where they are, which is on the dance floor. For NPR News, I'm Kyle Norris.
Let's face it, sci-fi fans can get touchy when you mess with their icons. And few characters are as iconic as Star Trek's Mr. Spock, originally played by Leonard Nimoy.
Were I to invoke logic, logic clearly dictates that the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few.
When director J.J. Abrams rebooted the Star Trek franchise in 2009, fans wondered, we should say worried, about how he would handle Spock. But with the second Star Trek film out now, those worries are long gone. thanks largely to actor Zachary Quinto.
Spock, nobody knows the rules better than you, but there has got to be an exception.
None. Such action violates the Prime Directive.
Shut up, Spock. We're trying to save you, damn it.
Doctor, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. The rule cannot be broken.
Zachary Quinto, a.k.a. Mr. Spock, joins me now. Welcome to the program.
Hello, thank you for having me.
So you've parlayed your film career and the fame that's come from that and television work into opportunities in theater and Broadway. You also have a production company. You've also used your fame in terms of hitting the campaign trail for President Obama. Mm-hmm. You've championed gay rights, and 2 years ago you revealed in an interview that you are gay. Mm-hmm. Now, I've seen you say that essentially you got more work after coming out.
That was a little out of context.
Okay, help me out. What happened there?
I feel like work didn't slow down.
But did you initially have doubts when you came out that would be the case? I mean, was there still a sense in Hollywood that to come out is somehow damaging to one's career?
I guess on some levels it still exists in people's minds, but I also feel like that is changing and it needs to change more, and the only way that it can change is for people to take responsibility and be visible in this way. It's about visibility. I don't imagine that there's anybody that's going to say, I don't want to work with this person because they're openly gay. But, I do think, especially, again, it comes back to the corporatized studio structure, which has its own kind of set of rules. And historically, there haven't been openly gay movie stars. There haven't certainly been openly gay action stars, and I feel like that's only a matter of time until it changes, and anybody that sees Star Trek Into Darkness can identify that in terms of the work that I'm doing in that movie. So,
in a way, it sounds like, not that you're lucky, but that your career kind of came to be in a moment when that's possible?
Absolutely. I don't take any kind of credit for this other than to say I reached a point where I had to be authentically open in a public way for myself, for the young kids that are killing themselves and being bullied because of who they are. I felt it incumbent upon myself to stand up and make a declaration because of all of those things. But I don't know. There are so many people that came before me that suffered more, that felt more limited than I ever would, even if I didn't come out, that I give the credit to those people for paving the way that allows me to live the life that I'm living right now, for sure.
Well, Zachary Quinto, thank you so much for speaking with us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Zachary Quinto plays Mr. Spock in the new movie Star Trek Into Darkness.
Context of White Supremacy. Justice, Gus T Renegade, in for another broadcast, hopefully to share constructive information on the system of white supremacy. Today's date, Sunday, May 19th, 2013. So I have been told. We will be back tomorrow. Colin Flaherty, white male, racist suspect, author of White Girl, Bleed a Lot. Same time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Colin Flaherty, Context of White Supremacy. The audio segment that you heard at the beginning of the program, it was a little longer than normal, but I think significant for many reasons. We started, Kanye West was on Saturday Night Live yesterday. He performed 2 songs. That was his second performance, New Slaves. I just added, he said the term nigger several times, but they edited that out during the course of his performance, which is interesting. Not surprising, but interesting. I think it alters the song when you put those back in to really hear what he's saying. Anywho, that was first. The next thing was a piece that was yesterday on NPR. They were discussing a youth center in Michigan for LGBT teens, young people, not just teens, younger people. And they were highlighting how a lot of the homeless people were actually black, so-called gay, both. Not all of them were black, but they were highlighting that this was a major problem. A lot of the younger homeless people that they were saying a significant portion of them are so-called homosexual or gay. Very interesting piece, followed by also on NPR from today's broadcast, like just a few hours before we went live. They spoke with actor Zachary Quinto. That piece stuck out to me for many reasons. He's in the film that just came out, Star Trek Into the Darkness. Also, he was just on Bill Maher's show on Friday. Like, I just saw him 2 days ago, where they were on and they were talking about, several different segments, but he's making the rounds promoting the film and also, as you heard, talking about the fact that he identifies, he's announced that he is gay, and his views on what's happening with so-called gay rights. Very important issue. It hasn't just been what happened with Jason Collins. It's been huge. If you've been reading the news, just in the past 7 days, gay marriage, that's what the term they're using, quote-unquote gay marriage, legalized in the state of Minnesota, the quote-unquote country of New Zealand, as well as the country of France. That was just yesterday that they signed it into law in France. Major issue worldwide. Really thankful to have the opportunity to dialogue. Our guest has been with us several times before. Several folks commented they thoroughly enjoyed hearing his views, really appreciated the insight that he shared with us on the couple visits. He actually, the most recent visit, he was with Mr. Fuller last year. We were discussing this same subject matter. Also, he is one of the folks who apparently ruffles folks the most on the C.O.W.S Facebook page. Get lots and lots of messages where folks are upset over something that he posted in the group that they didn't like or didn't agree with. So glad to know he participates in the C.O.W.S group. He's also the founder of the Black Men's Xchange. He was just on Roland Martin's podcast and his television program talking about Jason Collins, black male NBA player who has quote-unquote come out as being gay. Really thankful to have him with us this Sunday afternoon. Joining us live, Mr. Cleo Manago. Let's see here. Get his line. Mr. Manago, you can make it easy for me by pressing *6. That way I can pick out which one is you. I don't have to go through all the phone numbers. Thanks to everyone who dialed in. Let's see here. *6, Mr. Manago. That way I can pick out your line. That would be most helpful. Let's see. Still looking. Got him. Mr. Manago, are you there?
Yeah, I am here.
Outstanding. So good to hear from you, and thankful you could share some time with us. Could you, for our listeners...
Sure, thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. If for our listeners, if this is their first time hearing from you, could you give us some background information? Just let folks know what you do, who you are.
Sure. My name is Cleo Manago. I'm a behavioral health expert, a writer, cultural anthropologist. I run 2 national nonprofit organizations that focus on Black life, mental health, and cultural affirmation. One is the Masculinity Center for Wellness, Health, and Culture. One that's specifically for black men, diverse black men, including same-gender loving, bisexual black men, gay identified black men, and allies. It's called the Black Men's Exchange, and I do a lot of work. I'm right now in Brazil doing work around the formal celebration of the ending of slavery here that they have, and doing some black affirmation and education and counter white supremacy work in Brazil, in Rio de Janeiro, as we speak.
Outstanding. How do you get funding to do some of the work that you do?
I get funding through ventures that I have created that I'm on that business through real estate and things like that. Also get resources through, well, for this particular work, I get resources by being asked to come and speak by different universities, colleges, local organizations. I'm right now working with Ebony English, which is an organization here in Brazil that does English-speaking work with people and teaching them in a way that affirms them as black people how to speak English along with their Portuguese. Often I'm invited places and people pay me to come.
Fascinating. Ebony English, do they have a presence online where folks can check that out?
Yes, they do. I think it's Ebony English. I think it's on Facebook as well.
Never heard of it. I'm going to check that out as soon as we're done. Ebony English, check that out, folks. Put it on my, link it if you find it. Put it on my Facebook page. With that, I want to kind of hop to it and get started. There's been so much going on around this issue, same gender loving, so-called homosexuality. I guess you want to explain why you use the term same gender loving, just so folks won't be confused.
Well, for more detail, I really suggest that people go online and look up same gender loving, and they can add my name to it, Cleo Manago, for information. But same gender loving is a way of referencing one's sexuality and how one loves who are homosexuals, so-called, and black. I don't identify with and I'm not involved at all in the gay community, gay politics, gay agenda, and have some critiques of that, which we may or may not get into. But as far as I'm concerned, the gay agenda in gay community is not necessarily compatible with the affirmation and empowerment of Black people. So as a result, I'm not really connected to that community or involved or take on their identity or paradigm to reference me, and recommend that Black people do not.
Right on. I remember when you were with us last year and some of the more recent times that I've heard you speak, you consistently say that the problem with Black people is that we have not had a quote-unquote rational conversation about the issue of same-gender loving, so-called homosexuality. Can you explain to us what you mean when you say a rational conversation?
Well, I got to give context, and I can make it short. You just played a radio show that had a young man, likely Black, I'm sure he was Black, talk about being in this shelter or this program in Michigan and his voguing and everything. And what went through my mind when I heard that is that, these young folks don't have no comfort zone in their own community in many ways because they want to be connected to their family, like most babies and most children naturally want to be connected to their family and their parents, that they feel or see rejection or ridicule or abuse sends them in the arms of white people and white agendas and makes them sitting ducks to be internalized white supremacists as Black. And I got frustrated again because our community, for reasons I'm very clear about, and all the time we've been in this country since the enslavement period, has not sat down and had a rational conversation about the existence of same-gender loving people as part of the Black collective. And that we haven't done it for reasons that may or may not come up in this call, but have come up in the previous conversations, is still wreaking havoc. We know, we think, we need to face it and stop creating these trauma impacts and creating this pipeline into the white gay agenda, because we create anti-Black people in too many cases while not facing and addressing
Mr. Manago,
as a people.
Hang on one second, because I still haven't really got a clear explanation about what consists of a rational conversation. Like, what exactly is the deciding?
A rational conversation is the proper word that you just used. A rational conversation is a decision to sit down and hear each other out and engage why people are and who they are as same-gender loving people in the Black community. And engage the issue rationally, like basically to a good extent you and I have done on these shows. But it needs to be done on a collective basis because there's lots and lots of misinformation. So the first thing that makes it rational is a decision to be respectful and engage each other on the topic.
Okay. I appreciate that's what I wanted. Thank you. Okay. If that's true, and I appreciate the fact that you acknowledged, you said this because you've been with us at least twice before, and you said that those times you felt have been rational conversations where you've been heard respectfully. I don't think we did any interrupting or yelling at you, anything like that. I think people were, or at least I can speak for myself. I am very interested to hear your views and to respectfully listen. One thing I think also is a component of what you call rational conversation is being truthful, like making sure we're being accurate with the things that we say. So that's one thing that I want to make sure we hold each other to while we discourse today.
Absolutely.
One of the things that I want to say, and this just being truthful, when I hear you say that, especially since now you admitted that you have had some rational conversations with other Black people on this matter, when I hear you say that, it suggests, just when you use the term, we have not had a rational conversation, that term rational, the connotations around that, people that struggle being rational, they are irrational. They might even be crazy. Like, that's what it suggests. So when I hear that, and I thought that before, but just now that I heard it today when I was listening to some of your other interviews, when you say that to me, it suggests that Black people who are not accepting of so-called homosexuality, same-gender loving, that they're irrational, that they're crazy. Now, that might not be what you mean, but it's suggested when you say we haven't had a rational conversation about this. You want to go ahead and respond?
Well, can I respond to that?
Absolutely.
Can I respond to that? innocence is just anything. When you say what you just said, that's your own imagination and your own impulse. I say what I said. I don't make any suggestions except for what I literally say. And what I literally said is that as opposed to attacks, opposed to a lot of the myths and assumptions and projections that people have around what being a same-gender loving is about and what is a symptom of, etc., and screaming to the top of their voice or not listening and insisting on that perspective and unable to have it engaged. That's what I mean by irrational. It has nothing to do with agreement and disagreement at all. That's not even the issue. The issue is hearing each other and engaging each other. And another important word that you use, which is very rare in this topic, is truthful. Because even in the first conversation I had with you, some of the people that called in, their perspectives were completely mythological and ironically completely out of a European lens from a European context that has nothing in the world to do with black people. So mythological is definitely not truth. So I'm not saying that the word disagreement is a whole other topic. I'm talking about rational now. People can rationally disagree. That's another issue of the disagreement or not. Matter of fact, I'm not even looking for agreement. I'm looking for rational discourse.
Okay, and you said you have had that before, so I'm glad to hear that.
Oh, yeah.
That trend will continue. Just one thing I do want to get in. I didn't say it was my imagination. This is what I thought.
I did.
Based on, I know, and I'm pointing that out. I know, I didn't interrupt you, so I don't want to be interrupted. You said it's my imagination, and I'm just clarifying. That's not what I said. I said that's what I think based on the words that you used. That's all.
Right, and I'm saying that the words that I use, which are literal, is that we should have a rational dialogue. I didn't say you should agree with me.
Okay. Duly noted. Moving forward. Oh, wait a minute. Okay. Moving forward, you said regarding Jason Collins, and I hope by now, because I almost want to say we're a little late on the Jason Collins thing. Hopefully people know, black male. He just had a major front cover of Sports Illustrated where he is listed as the gay athlete. Like that was what they had in huge letters next to his face on Sports Illustrated. So if you haven't seen it, you can check it out. They have been talking about this every day. Mr. Manago has already had several dialogues about this. Anyway, hopefully people have seen that. In your dialogues, Mr. Manago, where you have been reporting on Mr. Collins' revelation, one of the things that you said that it's important what Mr. Collins disclosed. It's important for black people to see that gay black people or same gender loving black people do exist. Can you explain what you meant when you said that?
What I meant or said was that Jason Collins said and acknowledged that he was a same gender loving person, but he said gay, but we'll get on that later. That hopefully, because it's such an iconic announcement, will be another opportunity that might be created for black people to finally have this rational conversation that I've been asking the community to collectively have for a long time. That's the only potential value I see in what Jason Collins did. I have some issues in the midst of all of that, but I did say that he did come out and say that, and that he does not fulfill any stereotypes necessarily, and that he counters a lot of the perspectives in terms of what you suppose to look like and do, like an athlete, for example. That maybe that could stimulate, or maybe through the fact that people are asking me to talk about it, I can reiterate what I think is important, which is that we finally have a rational conversation about this, because even how Jason Collins, quote unquote, came out, and the whole paradigm in which he's representing does not affirm black people. And that he has been conditioned into doing things that way, in my opinion, is because there's been little room in the black community context for him to have that as a frame of reference to talk about who he is. So the whole thing was wrapped up in white folks.
I want you to...
And white agendas like...
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I mean, for example, there's one passage in his Sports Illustrated story where he talks about he wore a 98, the number 98 on his jersey in silent tribute to Matthew Shepard. Matthew Shepard is a gay identified white guy that was killed in the 1990s, and it was a so-called gay hate crime. Before Shepard was killed, and since Shepard was killed, a number of black people, same-gender living black people, some that got a little bit of media attention, were killed, and he didn't mention them. So to go, and also the white gay community had talked about Matthew Shepard ad nauseum, giving him all kinds of tributes. So they didn't need Jason to join in. And as a black man, if he was connected to the black community or felt connected to the black community, it would have been cool if he would have acknowledged Sakia Gunn or Rashawn Brazil or Arthur J.R. Warren, some of these other young same-gender living people that I know who died resulting from hate crimes and self-hate crimes. So that's what I mean by white agendas, among other things, that they keep on being lifted up, white people's perspectives and issues, and same-gender living black folks, like black people on other issues, are left out in the cold.
C.C. McDonald, add that name there as well. I also have not heard James Byrd Jr. mentioned, and that hate crime that they have mentioned when they've talked about the significance of him wearing 98 and Mr. Shepard. The hate crime bill that's named after Mr. Shepard is also named after James Byrd Jr. I have not heard his name mentioned at all this month in connection to anything about what's transpired with Mr. Collins or the mentioning of Mr. Shepard. I wanted to get you to expound a little bit because you said something that I thought is really important. I have a sound clip that I think will connect with that commentary about how this event has not really been very affirming of black people. This segment is when Mr. Collins, when he went on the Oprah Winfrey program, and they had a moment that was real important. And before that, it's a segment where Charles Barkley, he's talking about this, and he's talking specifically to black people. This will finish up, and then we'll get you to expound on what you were touching on, context of white supremacy.
And you know, Kenneth talks about it all the time. Us being black, we got to always be for tolerance. You know, I never went through what the great Bill Russell and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Jim Brown and all those guys went through. But just thinking about it, it had to be horrific. So we got to always be for tolerance and acceptance.
Anti-black. Did you realize how big this was being, I mean, you obviously know that in the African-American culture, which I didn't know until like maybe a decade ago, that the stigma of being gay is even worse than it is in the general population. Yeah.
I think that has to deal with a lot of just how hand in hand the church is with the African-American community. And trust me, I grew up in a very religious family.
You knew as an African-American?
I knew as an African-American that
this is big.
It's even, it adds another dimension to the discussion.
Yes, because that's why you said, I am
black,
I'm gay.
Yes.
I'm 34 years old, I am black, I'm gay.
Yes, it definitely adds another dimension to the conversation. Mm-hmm. And but I was very fortunate that I have a gay uncle, and he's been in the same relationship with his partner Tony since I was in high school. So they've been together for a very long time, and I knew that I had that role model to go to once I eventually got done with the baking process.
Yeah. And by the baking process, I know you talk about it in the article, it's getting cooked. You say some people come into their sexuality early and other people have to bake a while.
Yes.
You baked for 33 years.
I did.
Yes.
I did.
Yeah.
Yes, I did. I didn't tell another living soul until I was 33 years old.
Context of white supremacy. Does that relate to your point about how this has not been affirming of black people?
Absolutely. I didn't watch that and wasn't interested in seeing or hearing that. So that's my first time hearing that. But both Oprah and who's been doing a white supremacy affirmation campaign all of her career, both Oprah and the brother are both talking from a white frame of reference, because black people are not any more homophobic, so-called homophobic. I use the word anti-homosexual for black folks, but black people are no more anti-homosexual than white folks. Matter of fact, white folks are the authors of all anti-homosexual activity and leadership in the Western world. And I can give you names at some point if you want to in terms of who these people are, because you've heard of most of them. I know you've actually talked to Scott Lively yourself, but there's Bill O'Reilly, Pat Robertson, Glenn Beck, Rush Limbaugh, both George Bush Jr. and Sr. I mean, we can go on and on with the white people that have been the architects of the anti-homosexual movement in this country. And black people, particularly religious black people, learn how to be anti-homosexual by their white philosophical leaders. But people like Oprah Winfrey and Jason, they don't talk about reality from a perspective that gives light to the black experience and black experience in the context of white supremacy. They're not going to have that conversation. So it's to be expected. But yes, you're right. When you raise that conversation, it's definitely a conversation that was not affirming of black people, that re-stigmatized black people as particularly anti-homosexual or homophobic, and it's not true. It's just not true.
That's been a dominant theme, and I think when you were a guest on Roland Martin's program, and folks should remember last year he had got in major trouble with GLAAD and some of these other white quote-unquote gay rights organizations for his Super Bowl tweet about Dave Beckham. He was in major trouble last year, but when you were on his broadcast this month, you all were saying, and I think it was Roland Martin who raised that issue and saying how it seems like this has been another one of those incidents where it's been a lot of black people are intolerant, black people are quote-unquote homophobic, black people are not accepting. And I think when you were with us the very first time, you were saying that it's been your experience, black people don't do a whole lot of beating up on other black people because they are quote-unquote homosexual or same-gender loving. That hasn't been your experience. Is that still true?
What's been my experience is that you might hear can you hear me?
Loud and clear. Yes, sir.
Okay. You might hear name calling, the machismo stuff, the not man enough stuff, and there's definitely verbal abuse, attitudinal abuse, and religious abuse toward a lot of folks, including same-gender loving people in many black community contexts. But beating and battering and killing and threatening death, that's very rare in the black community. There's individuals, maybe one or two, that might do that, but as a norm, it's very rare. It's mostly attitudinal. But what I think happens, though, now that I think about it, that Jason might be reacting to, but I don't, to me, Jason does not give the energy of an affirmed black man. Frankly, his fiance was white. His whole thing seems to be quite white acculturated. But one thing that does occur, which would impact black people who are same-gender loving, regarding the black people more than anybody else, is that same-gender loving people want their families and their communities to love them. So all they know is how they feel about black rejection. So they might blow that up and might report to white folks who have been interviewed that black people are particularly homophobic, but that's not true. Another thing that a lot of even black same-gender loving people get mixed up with is that the white gay community is very powerful. And the white gay community has built its own community, its own geographical areas, its own empire. That makes some same-gender loving black people be fooled into thinking that white people don't deal with homophobia anymore because they have so many rights, gay marriage, etc. But no, white gays are still hated and oppressed. They just have white skin and power in America, which makes it look like they're less oppressed. And black people don't have power in America, so they don't have that contrast point. So they look at being black as more of a difficulty if you're same-gender loving, but they got it wrong. Because black people just aren't informed about the whole context of white supremacy most of the time, so their perspective is not even fully informed in this context.
That is also an important fact. Mr. Collins, he was engaged. He was supposed to be married to a white woman. In fact, I had told one of the callers, she called in a couple weeks ago and we were talking about this issue, and she said that there was one news report where they were talking to his, I guess, former fiance, and she was saying that she didn't know and blah, 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 and they were all set to be married. Then it was called off, and she said in the comment section that it looked like these were likely white males, that they just went ballistic and were saying all this racist stuff about how dare this nigger jilt this white woman and blah, 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 and he shouldn't have been with her in the first place. Standard trifling behavior. I thought this was important because, as you just touched on about, and I've seen the same trend in terms of the labeling of black people and saying that they are quote unquote homophobic, or I think the term you said was anti-homosexual. You said that there hasn't been abuse. You did say that the verbal abuse, kind of name calling, that sort of thing. I just want to point out, number one, as toxic as the global black population is under racism, white supremacy, there would be a lot of verbal abuse and name calling, even if you are not same gender loving. I think Mr. Manago and I would agree on that, correct? I'm still not seeing Mr. Manago. I think we'll take a quick commercial break. That'll give me a moment to see if I need to give him a ring or if he's going to dial us back in. Hang tight. Should be right back with you. Context of White Supremacy.
RacismDaily.com, your number one source for global news reports on race, racism, and overt actions of white supremacy. From Asia to the Americas, to Europe, to Australia, to Africa, racism is not a thing of the past. It is our current reality. Be informed. Be globally informed. You should be the first to know. RacismDaily.com, RacismDaily.com, RacismDaily.com.
Is racism hurting you? On issues of race, are you unable to speak, think, and act with clarity and confidence? Are you tired of laughing when nothing is funny, smiling when you are not happy, agreeing when you really disagree? At counterracism.com, you can learn specific strategies and techniques to counter the behaviors of the people who practice racism in all areas of activity, using words correctly, following counter-racist logic, even counter-racist science projects designed to reveal what racism is, how it works, and how to counter it. The open-source code writing format allows you to pick and choose from a variety of counter-racist suggestions so you can produce the code that works for you. Stop by counterracism.com today and help replace racism with justice.
That's counter-racism.com.
Do you need a one-stop shop for all of your multimedia needs? Triumphant Multimedia is a skilled team of professionals with a passion for great marketing and chic design. Our specialties include consulting, brand development, copywriting, and creative graphic design that's second to none. We also offer photography, photo retouching, videography, and video editing. At Triumphant Multimedia, our goal is to provide highly effective creative solutions built to suit any individual need or budget. Give us a call at 678-732-8067 or check us out online at trimultimedia.com.
Hi everyone, welcome. This is Justice with the C.O.W.S radio program. If you want to learn about, understand, and counter racism, white supremacy, be sure not to miss a C.O.W.S episode. We keep them jammed, packed with constructive information to sharpen your use of words to help eliminate the system of racism, white supremacy, ASAP. Also, to be able to invest in my counter-racist efforts, co-hosting the C.O.W.S radio program, please visit my blog, justdojustice.blogspot.com.
You're just saying just buckets and buckets of words.
I got an uncle real crazy. My Uncle B, 55 years old, hates white people, married to a white lady. And he's sitting around going, these crackers ain't shit, except for Susan. And he tried to explain the whole thing to me one day, say, yeah, I got a white wife, I love her, she love me, that's all that matter. But I tell you this, if the revolution ever come, I'll kill her first. Just to show these crackers I mean business. Motherfucking cracker ass, motherfucking cracker. Shit, cracker, motherfucker. Hey, hi, honey.
Muted.
Motherfucking cracker, I'll kill my cracker kids too.
Let's see, Mr. Manago, is that
Hello?
you? Yes, sir, we can hear you. Are
Cool.
you with?
Sorry about that.
No, all good. Thank you.
I'm back.
Thank you for dialing back in. Thank you, listeners, for being patient. When we lost you, I was following up on your commentary. I was saying that when you responded. You said, number one, in terms of physical abuse, violence, very rare for black people to be engaged in that sort of misbehavior. You did say in terms of taunting, questioning your masculinity, name calling, that sort of thing, you said that you do see a reasonable amount of that amongst black people. And the point that I raised was that you would have a significant amount of that, even if you were not same gender loving. That would still be an issue just because of how we behave, unfortunately, as victims of racism. And I said, is that an accurate point? I said, I think we would agree there.
We would agree there, but what I was talking about in terms of specifics, as I had mentioned earlier about Jerry Falwell and all those people that taught black people King James anti-homosexual hatred speak, you'll have black people in the community mimicking them, not realizing they're mimicking them, quoting the Bible, and torturing same-gender loving people through religious means in our community. And I think that all communities go through that. But white supremacy always heightens what black people do as being the most this and the most that, to re-dehumanize us and re-problematize, make us a problem more than anybody else. Just like, as you know, the term black on black crime is ridiculous because most crime that happens to white people is white, Asian is Asian, but there's no such thing as white on white or Asian on Asian crime as a normal part of the English language, like there is black on black crimes. You know what I'm talking about.
Absolutely. In fact, I was, while you were out for a second, I was saying that Melissa Harris Perry, they did a segment last Saturday where they were talking about the Jason Collins situation, and they highlighted the fact that they felt the white media was really blowing up the fact that this wasn't just a gay athlete, that this was a black gay athlete. And they pointed out the opposition, right? And they were saying, let's hear what the opponents to this say. And the only opponent that they mentioned was Chris Broussard. And he was given his Christian religious view as to why he didn't agree with this behavior. And they kind of lampooned him and talked about, he deserves to be criticized and blah, blah, blah. And it's good to hear this so that we can find these people and change the way they think. And I thought that, again, is anti-black in my view, because it paints us as being the ones who are quote unquote intolerant, not accepting of this behavior. I haven't heard one single white person listed out as being someone who was opposed or said something bad about Jason Collins. Can you comment on that?
Well, the guy that you just mentioned, Chris Broussard or whatever his name is,
Broussard.
He's not a powerful, influential person. He just came out and said some stuff in light of Jason Collins' announcement. He's not, the leader of thought in the black community.
Absolutely, I totally agree.
But white folks found somebody to highlight and continue the black people are particularly bad mythology that a lot of us play into, unfortunately. That's all that is.
Absolutely. I completely agree. And I also wanted to point out for folks, if you read the article that Mr. Collins wrote, he doesn't make any mention of black people being mean to him when he disclosed or announced that he was same-gender loving, gay. He used the term gay. He said that his brother was very supportive and was protective of him. He said his parents were very supportive. They were on Oprah too, and they were very supportive and said they didn't have a problem about it at all. His aunt said that she knew all along, and she was very supportive. Everybody that he mentions in the article, nobody said anything bad. Nobody was mean to him. Nobody threw him out of the family or said that they didn't want to talk to him anymore. He has no mention of that at all, and I haven't heard that aspect really touched on at all. It's just been, in my view, really painted as though there's something wrong, defective with black people. I wanted to check in to see if Justice, if she had some questions. If you need Skype assistance, I can do that. If you're on the line, you can press *6 so I'll know where you're at. We can get your questions in. Let's see here. Let's see. Thinking she might. I'll see if she. See if I can need to get her on my line here. Let's see. All right. Now I'm not hearing from Justice. Tough day on the plantation. I will continue to keep an eye out. See if Justice lets us know if she has some questions or if I can figure out which line she's on. Justice, are you there? All right. And I'm still not here. I'll give Justice a moment. We'll see if some of our callers, because I do see callers with hands. Mr. S. Dot, I see your line is open. You had a question. S. Dot, did you have a question for Mr. Cleo Manago?
Yes, sir. Good evening. Can I be heard?
Loud and clear.
Mr. Manago, I wanted to ask you particularly about the term same-gender loving as opposed to gay. When you are encountering other black people, more specifically black males, who you would classify as same-gender loving, and many of them classify themselves as gay, what is
of course they do.
What is the pushback that you get from them, and are many of them or more of them embracing that term?
Well, yes. I mean, internationally among African people who are same-gender loving, the term is being embraced. But getting to your initial question around pushback, I think we all have heard, I mean, Dr. Wilson talks about the old saying, if you're black, get back. If you're white, you're all right, et cetera. A lot of black people think that way. So since SGL, we're conditioned to think that way. Since SGL came from a black source and white is better than black, there are black people who cling to gay with dear life. There's also black people who look at SGL as divisive and a troublemaking perspective who cling to gay. There's also black people, and this part I think is the most common, who only heard about gay during their years of self-discovery and going through what I heard Oprah and that other guy call cooking. When they're going through the self-discovery process in this country, what they hear all the time in terms of what you call yourself if you're homosexual is gay, not SGL. Just like you don't hear people talk about counting white supremacy as a normal part of the landscape. It takes, getting into specialized places to have that kind of focus and that kind of clarity. So due to those things I just mentioned to you, that is the life of SGL. And again, there's lots of embracing, lots of SGL, this and that. There's scholars who've written about it. I mean, it's a term that has been embraced worldwide and definitely in the United States among black same-gender loving people. And there's been some pushback.
And just one final question. With Jason Collins recently coming out as gay or same-gender loving, what do you think what impact do you think that will have on younger black males, more specifically considering that this is a black male who was involved in a long-term relationship with a female who happened to be a white female? What do you think that this will do in terms of many black males who may share that particular sexual orientation and may be hesitant to reveal that?
This might sound, kind of dismissive, which I don't mean to be in case it does, but I don't think Jason Collins is somebody that the black community is focused on. I wrote an article recently about the fact that I've traveled all over this country and talked to people about this, among other things, and the black community, including among same-gender loving people, are fired up about it. It's a very lukewarm response. There's individuals who are an exception to this, but overall, it's not something that is powerful in the lives of same-gender loving people. And frankly, I think the reason why is because it's so black, it's so anemic when it comes to some clear black connection. And I think when the white wife came up, that made that even more clear that this person was not really someone who was black community connected. And also, he's not like a world famous basketball player either. I mean, if it was somebody who was like famous and on the court now, making points and popular and like a Magic Johnson, that would have been more powerful. But I think the white gay community is pushing him because of his relative status and making him a poster child to push their agenda. I don't think he's really been that helpful or that much of an inspiration to black people.
So as someone who, and this is my final question, as someone who has taken the time to do some research on this particular area of activity, would you say that he is the actual first openly gay or same-gender loving athlete, whether black or otherwise, because I heard that Carl Lewis was gay or same-gender loving and openly out about that. I heard of a few other people. I believe that there was a football player as well. So is he the first individual? And if he isn't the first individual, why do you think that they are positioning him as that?
Well, he's not the first individual. There's others along the lines of those that you mentioned. Even though Carl Lewis is not in the closet, quote unquote, he never made a public announcement with a manifesto to some extent, like Jason Collins did. But he's not the first one to make an announcement. But I talked about what I'm going to tell you on the last Roland Martin show that I was on. I think that the reason why Jason Collins got so much press is because he's being used to keep the gay topic in the media to push gay marriage. And if gay marriage was not on the table to be pushed all over the country and the world, I don't think him, particularly because he's black, given how racist the white gay community tends to be very consistently, I don't think he would have got any play at all like the other brothers did and the sisters did, because it's a community that's very white and rarely acknowledges black people, but it was opportunistically important to do that now because the gays identified folks are enjoying a lot of press, and Jason Collins only helped.
Thank you.
Person that called.
You're welcome.
Person that called 9325. Did you have a question for Mr. Manago?
Gus, hello?
Oh, I got you, Justice. Let me get this caller and then I'll get your line.
Okay.
Yes, can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
I hear you.
Okay. Greetings, Gus. Greetings, Mr. Manago.
Greetings.
I was looking over your website, and I noticed that.
Which one? Which one?
Well, I think this was the main website where you are the founder.
What's it called? What's the website called?
Well, I'll have to pull it up. But the question was, you were referred to as a social architect, and I just would like to know what a social architect is.
A social architect is someone, I consider Gus a social architect as well. And what I mean by that is that we live in a society that has a bias, and people like Gus and I, from my perspective, are creating other frames of reference, other ways of thought and interrogation, because we live in a society that is white supremacist, racist, and biased. And I create organizations, methodologies, ways of thinking and talking and viewing the world, which is architecture, creating and building, to create alternative ways of looking at things that are going to be more beneficial and practical for the advancement of black people and the healing of black people, diverse black people. So as somebody who builds institutions, that's what I'm referring to when I mention social architect, and make films and everything else that I do.
Okay, thank you very much. That website was the official website of the Black Men's Xchange National.
Okay. Yes, that is a real website that I'm connected with. There's so many that I'm not connected with that have my name. I have to make sure that this was one of them. This one is official, yes.
Okay, it looked as if you're doing a lot of positive work. I applaud you for that.
Thank you.
I don't want to, spend any time, talking negatively of white people. I just have a couple of questions. One is which I've already asked. The other one is, I was wondering if you could speak a little bit on the media's depiction of black males and black females in a gender war. Seem to always be at odds with each other, but when there's a depiction of a black male that is same gender loving. I think you coined that term. They never show that in a negative light. I was wondering if you could speak on that.
Yeah, sure. That's pretty easy. The gay agenda and gay community is the homosexual sector of white supremacy. So they are doing what they do, constantly pushing their agenda, and they will push their agenda where they feel like it, with anybody's face, no matter what color they are. It's still their agenda. Like Jason referencing Matthew Shepard, etc. That's white gay paradigm 101 when you mention Matthew Shepard. So they'll let anybody, if they feel like it and it's opportunistically helpful, be their cover person. So when you see all these things happening with the gay community on TV, that's white people doing what white people do. When you hear and see black people separated, made a joke out of in terms of male and female relationships, or with black men being encouraged to not be with black women, that's the same thing. You know, the same attack on blackness, black continuation, black power, black love, black self-respect. It's the same thing. So you're right. I mean, there's no such thing as we speak to watch normal primetime TV and see two black people loving each other, heterosexual, without a laugh track, or homosexual, two black people, frankly, without a laugh track and without it being a comedy. Believe it or not, when it comes to relationships, same-gender loving black people and heterosexual black people are treated the same. Whenever you see a same-gender loving black person in a film or a TV series, he or she has a white partner. Or in real life, Wanda Sykes, Don Lemon, A.C. Granderson, all these people have white partners. So the attack, believe it or not, is on black people regardless of their sexuality.
Okay, thank you very much, sir, and thanks for coming on the show.
Sure, thank you for listening.
Get the rest of the callers after we get Justice's questions. Just hang tight, the rest of the folks who have questions. Justice, if you have some questions for Mr. Manago, feel free.
Greetings, Mr. Manago, Gus, and the callers.
Hello, Justice.
The president of France made the law to where now in France there can be a so-called gay marriage or gay weddings. According to the Huffington Post, it said that France is the most popular country to have legal gay marriages. What are your thoughts on articles like this?
Well, first of all, hello, Justin. It's good to hear your voice. It's been a while. I'm glad to know that you're a young lady. I didn't know the first time it was thrown off, but hello, how are you? I don't really have any perspective on that. I mean, that's just the French version of the white gay agenda. You know, I mean, I don't give a lot of deep thought to that, but I will for the sake of the show and to be conversational by saying that it's just the same agenda of white gays trying to fight for what they feel are their rights all over the Western world. And that's what they're doing. They're doing it in France. They're doing it wherever they've colonized and occupied. They're doing what they do. So, in France, it's organically white. So they're just doing their thing. I mean, it's really a derivative of what's happening here. The United States has inspired a lot of places in the world, particularly in the Western world, to have, and even in Asia now, South Korea, of course, which is colonized by the United States, they are starting to talk about gay marriage there as well. So it's just a huge push by a very powerful community called the white gay community. Most people call it gay and just leave it at that, but it really is the white gay community. And they're just doing what they do. They're pushing for power and they're getting it.
Organically white? What do you mean? Hi.
I mean, yeah. France is in Europe. You know, like Chinese folks, or I go to Africa. African people are organically African. That's where we're from. That's our roots. It's indigenous. It makes sense for black people to rule Africa because it's Africa. So that's what I mean by organically, that we are originally from there. And white folks are originally from France, among other parts of Europe. That's what I meant.
Okay. White people have already legalized anti-sexual marriages in Minnesota, New Zealand, France, etc. What do you think white people are trying to accomplish in legalizing this behavior?
Well, what do you mean by anti-sexual?
Male, sexual relationships, female sexual relationships.
Okay. Well, I can't answer the question without addressing that and letting that slide. I don't agree that same-gender love is anti-sexual. I don't agree that any sexual that's consenting and coming from people's heart and their way of being is anti-sexual. So I can't answer that question using your terminology. So you have to re-answer that question in a way that I can actually engage it, because anti-sexual is offensive. That would like me calling you anti-white. That would be like me calling you anti-white as opposed to calling you a so-called black person. It's calling you anti or non. I'm sorry, let me make that more clear. That'd be like me calling you non-white as a way of matter of course instead of being a so-called black person. It's a dismissive and dehumanizing term, and I understand its intent and even where it came from, but I don't agree with it, so I can't affirm it to answer the question without questioning it. Anti-sex.
Okay. Well, I'll go on to my next question for now, and then we'll see from now.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you think powerful white people are trying to encourage gay marriages, anti-sexual behavior as one of their strategies to confuse non-white people?
The best way I can answer that, and I'll try to be, not too wordy, is I think that the white gay community wants power, freedom, and liberation. It's been an extremely oppressed community, even in Europe, particularly in Europe, for hundreds and thousands of years, and they've gotten all this power and political prowess and control in the United States, and they're trying to have it. I don't think that them trying to have it is an attack on black people. Frankly, I think the reason that black people are subject to gay indoctrination is because as same-gender-loving people, they have nowhere else to go where they get to actually have their sexuality without abuse or without rejection. So they flock over to, unfortunately, to a racist community for shelter around the way they love and who they are. And in sometimes, like with Jason Collins, the white gay community exploits that. Rather, the white gay community is trying to create some more homosexuals, but I do think the system, which is and is not homosexual in terms of white folks, is creating all types of angles in which to compromise black men, to compromise black manhood, to create confusion around black male power. That's going on, but that's not coming just from white gays. If it's coming from that community at all, it's in terms of a specific source. That's coming from white supremacy and the media and all kinds of other places. That's not just from that community, but that community is part of the larger media influence. But that effeminization of the black man and confusion around the black man happened before there was a gay community. They were doing that kind of stuff to black men before 1969. And 1969 is when the gay community was formally created by white homosexuals. But the attack on black male sexuality and so-called masculinity and so-called male capacity and ability to be a strong man, that started way before the gay community even came into existence. And of course, they've gone into third gear because they've gotten away with it all this time. But the gay community is not the origins of that attack on black male. It preceded the gay community.
Are you trying to work against racism, white supremacy?
24/7.
How?
Boy, I've got a long list. I'm doing it right now here in Brazil. By teaching black people to unlearn internalized white supremacy, by teaching black parents to raise black children to be critical thinkers and able to discern and navigate while they live in a society, the attacks on them, so they won't internalize the attacks. By coming up with methodologies that teach black people to understand that being black and healthy in America is not a passive activity. It's a deliberate and active activity because there's so much to counter and to expose so we don't hate ourselves and wind up not existing anymore because we run after white folks and coupling with them out of self-hate. I do documentaries that create dialogue around diversity among black people and us needing to be unified before we are destroyed. I build organizations for health and wellness and disease reduction and the increase of mental wellness and health as black people. I am in books, TV, all kinds of things I do. Everything that I do without exception is on behalf of the healing, advancement, and repair of black people. That's all I do.
When you talk to the black people about racism, white supremacy, what do you say to them specifically?
Similar to what I just said, that we need to be in conversation. We need to be in dialogue. We need to be deliberately involved in anti-white supremacy activity and unlearning the trauma impact that it's had on us intergenerationally. We need to not raise our children passively, but actively, and teach them that racism exists and that there is a gauntlet of white supremacist messages that's going to have them picking the white dog, and that they counter that tendency through facts about being black, through truth about black history and black capacity, and teach them to be critical thinkers and discerning through this gauntlet called white supremacy. That's what I do with parents and teachers and everybody that I speak to, what I'm doing in Brazil right now. I'm teaching them to unlearn the normalization of white supremacy as just a way of life, that they can actually counter it and think in ways that affirm them instead of that devalue them like a lot of black people are trained to think.
Okay. Does so-called gay behavior help non-white people work against white supremacy?
Say that again, please.
Does so-called gay behavior help non-white people work against white supremacy, racism?
Does gay behavior help non-white people? When you say non-white people, you're talking about like black people? So-called?
People who are not white, so... Yeah.
Well,
people who are not white.
That's a strange question. That's a strange question. It would be, to me, it would be just as strange as saying, does being heterosexual and discussing among non-white people help white supremacy? If I understand your question, what will help us deal with white supremacy has to do with us engaging the facts about what our enemy is doing and what is really organic to humanity and a symptom of white supremacy. So the question is strange. I think that counting white supremacy goes beyond sexuality. And I think, as I've said earlier in this conversation, that gay identity in the gay construct is a white supremacist sector it's a homosexual sector of white supremacy. And it's one that I don't advise black people to identify with and join. That's not helpful to black people. The gay culture and agenda is not helpful to black people. So if black people are involved in it, it's usually more helpful to white supremacy than it is black people. So I hope that answers your question.
Okay. Trying to process of what you said because I'm trying to think of a question from that.
Was I unclear? Was I unclear?
I'm just wondering because aren't you gay yourself?
Jessica, have you been listening to the show? Either of the three shows, I know you were on one of them. I don't identify with gay or as gay. I'm a same-gender loving man. I am what's generically, scientifically called homosexual, just like there's another term scientifically, generically called heterosexual, and there's bisexual, and there's transsexual. I'm homosexual, using that context in terms of neutral terms that are behavioral descriptors, but I don't do gay. I'm a same-gender loving man of African descent. So you must have a point with your question. What's the point?
Okay. So you don't think anti-sexual behavior helps non-white people working against white supremacy, right?
I don't look. The term anti-sexual don't compute for me. I mean, I know that that's supposed to be a description of homosexuality, and for me, it's ridiculous. So I can't take it seriously. I mean, that conversation or that term will work on a heterosexual person who's not same-gender loving and who don't get it. But when you talk directly to a same-gender loving person and calling them anti-sexual, that's, when you talk to somebody who has self-respect and love themselves and know themselves, who's same-gender loving, it ain't gonna work.
Okay. What I meant to say was so-called gay behavior.
So stop trying to sneak it in, Justice. So stop trying to sneak that word in, Justice, because you can't sneak it.
Sneak it in. What do you mean?
I mean, stop using it. I told you that I'm not going to be responsive in a way that takes it seriously. That term. I mean, I know it's part of the speak of particular cults and contexts of black people, but hey, it's one of the symptoms of the lack of conversation. It's one of the symptoms of a lack of rational engagement around being black, being African, human sexuality, the spectrum of ways that human beings are in the world and in Africa. So this anti-sexual stuff is an ignorant term.
Okay, so do you think... Okay, so do you think so-called gay behavior helps non-white people working against white supremacy?
I don't think the gay culture and the gay paradigm is helpful to black people. I think that it helps to stabilize white supremacy. And because black people will not create enough safe spaces for singular people in the black community, it helps to co-create what I've said before, for lack of a better term, Trojan horses against black people who identify with and as gay in that white paradigm that happens to not be affirming of black people and often racist.
Okay. Do you think same gender loving behavior helps non-white people work against white supremacy?
No less than being left-handed or 5 feet tall. I mean, people come in all kinds of different shapes and sizes and ways of loving. That has nothing to do with it. What counters white supremacy is deliberate attacks and deconstructions and exposing of it. It has nothing to do with sexuality. I'm not a same-gender loving person to fight on behalf of white supremacy. I was a same-gender loving person before it became crystal clear to me that white supremacy was indeed the most major problem in the known universe. So there's really no connection. If you want to talk about gay identity, as I did before, and the gay paradigm, that's not helpful to black people, and it helps to stabilize white supremacy. But being a same-gender loving person, you can be a heterosexual serial killer, nutcase, child molester, etc., as you can be a homosexual. I mean, sexuality is like eyeballs and hair. Everybody has a sexuality. They're just diverse. But that has nothing to do with counting white supremacy or not. And what helps white supremacy, using your question, is us as a community not attending to our same-gender loving family members.
Okay, so you're saying that. So you're saying that same gender loving behavior is not related to white supremacy.
Oh, absolutely. It's not.
Okay.
What is related to it is us not admitting that we exist and creating wounded people who run to white supremacy for help. That helps white supremacy.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
What you laughing at, Justice? What you laughing at?
I'm just trying to process of what you said.
Okay, cool.
Gus, go ahead.
I'm just laughing with you, that's all.
Context. Yeah, right here. Context of White Supremacy. The folks who have questions, 760-569-7676, and the code is 564-943#. Press star 6 if you have questions. Number one more time is 760-569-7676, and the code is 564-943#. Press star 6 if you have questions. I'm going to get the next caller. I just really quickly wanted you to give a little bit more detail, Mr. Manago, when you talk about how much power the white gay community has. The Human Rights Council, can you talk a little bit about this organization and how you have said, have also got very involved getting their hands on Jason Collins and using him for their objectives?
Well, you know what? I decided just now when you said that to take another angle on this that I think might be a lesson to black people. Yes, it's true that HRC is very powerful, and from my perspective, part of that power results from them being white. But it's also important to understand that homosexual folks in this country, including white homosexual folks, have dealt with severe oppression in the history of America and preceding America in Europe in particular. Vicious what happened to America. I mean, in Europe, the term faggot and all those words came out of Europe and are a result of the oppression of white homosexuals in Europe. So I say that because the white homosexual community rose in the 70s and 80s and took advantage of the HIV/AIDS scare and got more resources to further develop their coffers and their agenda and take on some political power because they successfully countered the government's uninterest in saving them from HIV and AIDS back in the day. So they got a taste of power through how successful they were when they were countering government oppression and government ignoring of the dying of their people. If black people were focused enough and relentless enough to do something similar in this country, we would have better outcomes regarding what happens to us. We've been confused with white supremacy, and we're timid and complacent and praying to a white Jesus and all these hypnotic trance things that gets in the way of us taking power. The white homosexual community took power. Now, they were already white and already conditioned to be racist and have been actively racist even while being oppressed as homosexuals, even then and even now. But the power that they have now comes out of that they were white people who fought for their rights in this country and who were relentless and non-stop in terms of pushing their agenda. Despite the fact that black homosexuals were getting HIV and still, according to reports, getting HIV disproportionately, the white gays, because they don't care about black people, moved on to other things once they conquered the HIV issue, and now the big thing is marriage. So that community is used to having success once it puts its mind to it and says, we ain't going to take it no more. And they're white, so they could, like Ellen, who's a multi-gazillionaire, was giving money to the cause before she even came out. So there's white folks who take advantage of their power and prowess, who fund the white gay community, who are homosexual, before they even said what they were. Jason Collins was giving tribute to Matthew Shepard in terms of the kind of prowess white folks get in this country. So I want to say that because it might awaken in black people listening that we have some power in our hands too, that we don't have the white audacity to take. But white folks called gay took the reins and took their power and were successful and are taking advantage of their power by pushing gay marriage everywhere. So the HRC is the white gay community's power base. It's a nonprofit organization and lobbying organization that they fund in the millions, and they do their job for white folks who are homosexual, called gay. Now, of course, black people, Indians, all kinds of people can get married if they like, but because of their work. But marriage is not on the top of the priorities of most same-gender loving people. Self-love is in getting some respect from their own people and from themselves is much more of a focus than gay marriage. That's a white gay agenda.
You write, this is from your piece, when will a high-profile African-American, quote-unquote, come out as black? When will black people come out as united? You wrote that Jason Collins is a black male in America, prototypically part of the most oppressed group in the nation, was treated as marginal. The big deal was his sexuality. This indicates the power and prowess of the essentially white gay community in this country. Mr. Cleo Manago, you can read the entire article online. The person that called in, Klondike Mike, your line should be open. Klondike Mike.
Hello, can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah. Good evening, everybody. Good evening, Cleo Manago and guests. Good evening. I mean, everyone else. Yeah. I'm sorry I wasn't here for a good 45 minutes of the show, but I was wondering if you could clarify just a few of the differences between the same gender loving community and the gay community.
You might have to go back and listen to the beginning of the program because we did that.
I can say something real quick, though, which might inspire you to do research. SGL, which you can say for short if you don't feel like saying same gender loving. SGL is black, gay is white. Now, just like everything else white in this country, black people attempt to assimilate, adapt, and use it and ascend into whiteness and do what white folks do and buy into that white print or blueprint. But so there are blacks who call themselves gay because, we speak English and we're in America. But the same gender loving movement and paradigm is black. And it's of black people and for black people.
Okay. You're a public speaker?
I've spoken up in public before, yes.
Okay. How do you make a living?
Well, people keep asking me that. I make a living as the head of projects that I've created in this country. I make a living by being hired to teach and educate and as a consultant on cultural competency. I have a model of behavioral health that I developed called the critical thinking and culture affirmation methodology, which is a critical thinking enhancing methodology to teach black people to unlearn the white supremacy trauma trance and become pro-black and aware and deliberate people on behalf of black people and solving black problems and being an asset to black people. I developed that model, which I get resources to train people on. I'm also involved in real estate, trying to be totally independent so people can't snatch a rug from under me because of my views. So my money comes from different places. I'm often, thankfully, hired around the world to help my community.
Can you tell me again the name of your critical thinking concept?
It's called CTCA, or Critical Thinking and Cultural Affirmation. That's the name of the the preventive health strategy or behavior change strategy that I developed.
Cool.
And the change is.
Sorry.
Go on.
No, you go ahead.
No, I was going to say that when I say behavior change, I mean change for becoming black white supremacists to black affirmationists.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that all makes sense to me. I'd be interested to research it further. It sounds really interesting.
Sure.
Have you ever been attracted to a female?
In what way?
Like sexually attracted to a female?
Not in a way that has as much intensity as I have with men or a male. Okay. Have you ever been attracted to a man?
I guess actually I could say that I've found men. I could say that a man is attractive physically. So yeah, I could say a man is attractive. I've never been sexually attracted to a man.
Okay, so you've never been in love with a man?
No. Mm-hmm.
Romantic love. Okay.
Yes, that's a whole different romantic love and sexual love. Are they mutually exclusive, or what is like? I don't know if I'm willing to get into that conversation because I don't know much about that. Mm-hmm.
Well, for me, I can speak for myself.
Okay.
Romance and sexuality are relevant and connected. I can't imagine being intimate with somebody on that level without loving them or having profound affinity for them.
Okay, because you know that there are people amongst the black community who feel that romance, or the term romance, is a Eurocentric idea, right? But I'm undecided myself. I don't really know.
And I hear that. Yeah, I have no qualms with that perspective, and I might even agree with it if I heard the whole perspective. But I'm using it as a figure of speech because I think we know what the term means. And I'm talking about falling in love, having desire, affinity, affection, intimacy that includes sexuality, and having a longing for a person along those lines.
Yeah, but I feel like if a romantic love then might just be an intellectual stimulation, like if you're not physically attracted to someone, then maybe it doesn't mean anything. Maybe it's just maybe you're just playing with yourself. I don't know. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but I bet you know the difference. I bet you know when you're in love and when you are interested in making love, quote unquote. I mean, all these words that we use, and all of them can be unpacked and interrogated and all that. And I'm willing to do that. And I'm very into changing words around to make them less problematic. I'm into that. But to make sure we get through a 2-hour conversation and cover many subjects, I'll just say that I think you know what I mean by. I mean, you've had a girlfriend before, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you want to be with her. You longed for her. You probably could say you loved her, and all that, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so that's what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
We don't need to dwell on the word romance and how white it is. I mean, every damn thing we're saying could be called white. But there's a difference between using words. There's a difference between using words.
I just want
to say. Go on.
No, I was just going to say.
No, this was good.
Oh dear.
Go on.
Okay. What I was going to say is that because it's funny because it seems like a similar argument that you're having now is that one of of semantics, I suppose, and definitions. But whereas we're describing you're describing the same behavior, at least to somebody who didn't hear the first 45 minutes of the program. Does that make sense?
Well, the context of your question was, have you ever been attracted to a woman? That was your first question. Sexually attracted to a woman.
Mm-hmm.
And my answer to your question was not with the intensity that I've had with men.
Okay.
And I said using words that are familiar, but that probably are problematic if we want to go deeper. So-called romance, love, desire, affinity, want to spend my life with, and all that stuff. Those kind of feelings tend to be toward a male. Now, I've met women in my life that I've loved and pondered those possibilities, but not the way that I have with men. And then you talked about, romance and how that's a European construct, and I don't have no qualms with that. But then I asked you, trying to be clear, have you been in love? Have you had a girlfriend? Have you longed for someone? And you said yes. And I thought that would give you a clarity on what I'm talking about in terms of how I feel toward men.
Okay. All right. I have just a few more actual specific questions, and then I'll move on. But
sure.
We have other people on the line. I wanted to make sure we can get as many callers as possible, so we could get some of the other folks. If you can hang tight, and then we can get back to you. If we have extra time, we can get back. You can get in some of your other questions. Is that okay?
Yeah. No problem.
Cool. Hang tight.
I do have a 10-second passage, Gus, which was that it's a difference between using words and being used by words.
Right.
Yeah, it's all rhetoric.
Person that dialed in
It's true.
The person that dialed in 2595, your line. I think that might be Pam.
Good evening to your guest, Mr. Manago. I don't know if I pronounced it right.
Hey, what's up?
Okay. When I listen to the conversation, I have to admit, it puts me in a quandary. Because first, I just want to say I appreciate the fact that you have made a distinction, a personal mission, not to get caught up in the white homosexual propaganda and allow them to use you and other black people who are saying gender loving, I think you said.
Or SGL.
Huh?
I said, or SGL, if you want to make it quick.
Okay. Okay. Well, I do appreciate that you make the distinction. I think that's significant. The thing is that there's going to be that camp of people who are, no matter what is said, no matter how well it's put, that are just going to see homosexuality as incorrect and will never see it as correct. And there are black people who feel that the homosexuality, the push for it, is a deliberate attempt to destroy the black family, to destroy black manhood, which to those of us in that group means heterosexuality and population reduction. And what I'm wondering is, given, that being said, if we're going to keep it real and honest with each other and not BS each other, I'm wondering how the two groups of people can ever come together to be effective in eliminating white supremacy, given that neither group is going to give quarter, because I belong to the first group. And while I respect your right to decide however you want to live, I will not be one of those people, I suspect, that will ever see homosexuality as correct behavior. So I'm wondering how these two disparate groups, neither one giving quarter, do you see any hope for any kind of attempt for unification to eliminate white supremacy?
Well, first of all, you said something about giving quarter. I'm not involved in that. That phenomena that you just described. You're in it, and you have described your relationship to it, but I'm not involved in it at all. All I'm trying to do is have a rational conversation based on what I know to be true. I'm not even concerned about people accepting, not liking, blah, 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 blah. But I'll tell you what, if people want to get together to work on countering white supremacy and the damage that is being done and the horrible things that is being done to us globally, including here in Brazil, for example, I mean, I can give you some stories. I'm down to work with those people. In terms of waiting for somebody's approval, I don't wait for nobody's approval. I'm not even interested or even ponder it or even think about it. It's not important to me.
Well, actually,
so I do. Go on.
No, you go ahead. No, I'll wait.
No, I was fair. I was saying that don't even cross my mind. I wonder if he's or she's going to accept me. That don't even cross my mind. And my work is about countering the.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead. My work is about countering the impact of white supremacy and the damage it does to black people. That's my agenda, and that's what I live for, and that's what I care about. Okay. Actually, I respect that. I wasn't speaking of approval. I wasn't speaking of any kind of, you go boy or common ground in that level. I mean.
No, I heard what you said.
Yeah, when people get together,
and they're trying to deal with something.
Yeah, if they're dealing with something as comprehensive and as serious as white supremacy, they've got to be able to function together without being distracted by major differences, even though those differences are always going to be there. And I'm just wondering, listening to the conversations that you've had on COWS, because I've listened to all of them, and you present yourself well, and I don't mean that as condescending, but you make your point very forcefully. I'm just wondering, for a person who feels just the opposite, who is just as forceful and just as convinced and persuaded, how can those two people realistically come together to fight white supremacy, given that first quarter that I belong to believes that the homosexuality is part of the white supremacy in terms of what, in terms of how it all began?
Well, Pam, I know your perspective. I heard it before. I heard it just now. I heard it some shows ago. Fine, enjoy yourself, But when you want to if you are interested in doing some work together against white supremacy, fine. And if you're not, that's fine. I'm not going to go around trying to counter your work or you at all. I'm not going to be adversarial to you at all. Period. That's not my style. Particularly if I see that your work has some benefit to black folks, I'm down with it. Now, in terms of working with you, whether we do or not, we both going to do what we're going to do. So that's fine. One thing I always suggest, though, is that we do what we do with truth, integrity, and to the extent that we can, respect and clarity.
Sure.
But getting people to be on my side and all that, I'm not even interested. What I am interested in, though, is people saying what they have to say about me to my face or in a public forum and not being cowards like I've heard of in this community, and talking about me behind my back. I think that's something that's unconstructive, childish, and very cowardly. Sure. If we have conversations whether we agree or not, where we're up, that we're on the up and up about it, and we're truthful, and we're respectful, the community is going to learn from that, no matter what side they're on. And I'll close with this: I am about improving the experience, the lifespan, and the power of Black people. And that's what I'm going to do.
Very good. You know what? I also support the work that you're doing. If your work is directed at eliminating white supremacy, I will support you as well. And I do think that you just kind of clarified something in my mind as far as what the two disparate groups can do together. And that is focus on the common goal. Maybe that's the only way.
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
That's right. You're welcome.
Caller at 7892. 7892. I see a sexy Black female listening down in Mississippi. Listening in. Good to see you. 7892.
Yes, this is not the sexy Black female. This is Universal Jones. Greetings. I have two questions for you, Mr. Manago. My first question is, with your work with consulting and in your organizations, do you find that you get more support from Black females or Black males? Or Black males? And I mean support, not necessarily financial. Black females? Okay. And do you think that has something to do with you identifying as same-gender loving?
Well, first of all, let me reiterate something. I'm talking about, and I'm willing to talk about it, and we'll talk about it in the future if asked. I'm talking about homosexuality right now on this radio show because Gus invited me to do so. My work here in Brazil, for example, is not focused on homosexuality. And my life and work is not focused on homosexuality. But the part where homosexuality comes into play is when, number one, when I'm asked to talk about it, or number two, when I see that people are being destructive and brutal and disruptive and hurtful to Black people based on their sexuality, then I'll come and intervene because that's destructive and it's not helpful to Black people to be in that fight. And then I'll raise the issue. But getting back to the issue of who supports me, I think that women, those that do, because of course there's women like Pam who don't agree with same-gender loving folks, which is irrelevant what people agree with. That's like not agreeing with somebody being left-handed, but we exist. The bottom line, though, is that I think that Black men who have been castrated, traumatized, thrown into deep confusion, sexually raped in some cases, in and outside of prison, all these things, and the judgment in this society against homosexuality based on not being man enough, being a punk and a sissy, blah, blah, blah. I think that intimidates a lot of Black men and confuses a lot of Black men and makes them very self-conscious. Women don't worry about manhood self-consciousness because they're not men. So women can have more flow. And I have to say that there's men who I have great support from, too. I just say it in terms of the most, which was your question. Most of the support, in terms of the most significant and powerful support, has been at the hands of heterosexual Black women. But there's some men who work with me as well. But men in this country are tripping off of their manhood because they're under attack. So I deal with the brunt of that, of course.
Okay. And my second question, are you familiar with the healthy masculinity movement that's going on here in the States?
No.
Okay. It's something that was put on by Men Can Stop Rape, and they're having Healthy Masculinity Summit. And I just wanted to ask you, do you have a definition for masculinity, or how would you define it? Or manhood?
Okay, that's two different things.
Yeah.
Manhood is the capacity. Are you talking about manhood in general or Black manhood?
Well, if we want to make a distinction, the Black manhood, then yes.
Okay, Black manhood is a male with the capacity to advocate for, protect, support, or co-support with a woman or another partner, their community and their people. A male or a manhood is having the capacity to step up and be relatively fearless against attacks on your people and your community and make countering attacks on your community a way of life and a way of being and stepping up and doing that. That's Black manhood. Masculinity is the opposite of femininity, if you want to be hardcore in terms of a spectrum that has some limits on either side. But no one is fully masculine and no one is fully feminine. But there are people who are exactly male and who are exactly female. And there's people who are hermaphrodites too. I mean, those people actually exist who have both, though they're not the normal part of the population in terms of numbers. But manhood is a male person who can step up and protect their people and be an effective advocate against harm, a destruction of their people and themselves.
All right. Thank you for your answer. That's all I had.
We had a person email a question and as well their emailed question. Do you think the gay agenda is one of the many tactics to control population? If so, do you think white people have the technological ability to alter the genetics of people? Mr. Manago?
Okay, that's a very dimensional question. I'm trying to remember the whole thing. The first part of the question, I think, is homosexuality being used for population control or something along those lines? I would imagine toward black people. I don't think that white folks are producing homosexuals genetically. I think that white people are helping to create circumstances that lead black men who will otherwise not do so into homosexuality. I wouldn't put nothing past white folks and that they in the laboratory doing whatever they're doing. But what they have been doing and what can be proven is that black men, for example, are incarcerated more than any other man, and black men are led into self-conceptual confusion more than any other man. And this is the black community's responsibility, the black community is one of the most difficult places there is to talk about molestation of men. So with all those things staying in the clouds and not being cleared up to be discussed, there's a lot of manifestations that do result in some level of sexual confusion or sexuality, behavioral change in somebody by circumstance. But I don't think that's typically some genetic thing, though. I don't know what they're doing in the laboratory. They could be doing anything in the laboratory. But most of the things that are happening on the ground that we can see is the compromise of black men and the compromise of black male self-concept, which can be sexualized. Now, you asked something else, too. You talked about population control, and it was a three-pronged question.
Do you think white people have the technological ability to alter human genetics?
Oh, I did answer that. I said that when I said they might be in the laboratory doing all kinds of altering. I don't know. I think I wouldn't put it past them to be working on doing something like that, but I don't think that's what's going on right now. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know what white folks are doing. But I can tell you this: I'm the same gender-loving man right now that we're talking with. I've been a same gender-loving person as far as I can remember. Ever since I had the capacity to think about intimacy and affinity and love, romantic quote unquote love, it's been a male before it was anybody else, and that was from a young age. So I don't think nobody came into my mama's house and planted no stuff in me, no genetic material.
Okay,
This is who I was.
Okay. One thing I did want to point out, because this goes back to what we touched on earlier, where we agreed that there is a pattern in the media of portraying black people as being especially homophobic. In your response to that question, you said that black people are especially prone to not discussing, avoiding the issue of child molestation, child rape. And I thought that not only reminded me of what we talked about before, about black people being libeled as being especially homophobic. When I first heard it, my initial response was, I have no idea how that can be true, given what I have seen about white people. And Jerry Saville, who is a and Jerry Sandusky, where white people in those situations certainly did not display that it was easy, that they were up to the task of honestly addressing the problem of child molestation and child rape. I certainly don't think white people have proven a track record for being great at that.
I hear you.
Okay.
But I think that the issue here, Gus, is not that black people are especially so-called homophobic. I think that black people are especially no manophobic, compromise of manophobic, more than anybody, and we should be. And I think that justifiable circumstantial concern is mixed in, because we live in a white society that determines reality, with a real issue among black people of no manophobia or no menophobia.
Person that called
and they're all becoming women or feminized.
Person that called in from, I think this is our caller in Alabama. Hope your mother has recuperated and doing well. Do you have a question for Mr. Manago?
Oh, how you doing, everybody? Thanks for asking, Gus. And I was listening yesterday when another caller was sending wishes out to my mother. She is doing better, and I thank y'all for keeping in her prayers. She's doing a whole lot better. I have a quick question to Mr. Manago. It's just one fast question. Like, what is the difference between a fetish and a sexual preference? That was my only question.
Well, a fetish is, for example, there's something called sadomasochism. A fetish is some people like to get beat up and whipped when they have sex. Some people like to be peed on. That's a fetish. Some people like to wear tight leather clothes when they're having sex. There's several other examples, but those are the ones that come to mind. Sexuality is sex with someone that's based on attraction and sexual interest that doesn't necessarily involve all of that other stuff. And it could, depending on it could, sure.
Person that dialed in, let's see. Not sure if this person is on Skype or the person that dialed in 9776. Your line should be open. Last four digits 9776.
Hi. I just had a quick question. I am interested in figuring out about your work in Brazil, because I'm actually thinking about going there for the World Cup, and I'm interested in understanding a little bit more about your work and involvement in Brazil.
Okay, well, I'm here in Brazil working on two projects. One of them is helping them create a program. Well, I don't know if you guys know much about Brazil, but Brazil, just like the United States, is a brutally white supremacist country. Mm-hmm. And there's parts of Brazil, for example, where young black men are murdered like people go shooting deer. And I'm not trying to be funny. And there's a lot of internalized oppression challenges here, but there's some good things here too, as well. And one of those is a project being developed called Ebony English, I believe. And what I'm here is to help them create a container for learning for black children that affirms them and that helps them to create in the curriculum triggers that helps them to unlearn white supremacy and recognize it in the landscape so they won't internalize those myths that has them hating themselves. The other work I'm doing here has to do with preventing violence against women. One of the unfortunate side effects of being oppressed in the patriarchal cultures, when black men are not allowed to be men like everybody else because of white supremacy's attack, is some of these men act out on females and feminine people, which could include men. So I'm here to help teach them to understand why that occurs, how to unlearn those impulses that can be violent. Was that clear?
Yes, very much so. Thank you for sharing that. So another follow-up question to your work in Brazil. What does the landscape look like? Because, I mean, I know I'm getting off topic here, but, you know, in the American media, they often portray Brazil, you know, as being very Latin in terms of, like, its people, and completely ignore the indigenous, the Afrocentric, you know, part of Brazil. So, which population are you mainly involved with, and what are some other things, or similarities, I should say, that you see, you know, in the pathology of, you know, Africans in Brazil versus, you know, Africans here in the United States?
Okay, I'll try to be real quick, Gus. White supremacy reigns supreme here. Over half the population of Brazil is black. So when you see all these white-looking people and light-skinned people in movies or on commercials, that's racism. Again, trying to, you know, whiteify everything. It's interesting. White supremacy is in the media, in the schools. Everything is filtered through the implication of white superiority, and black people have suffered through that in terms of law, access, and everything. But, and this is something African Americans so-called can enjoy, this is the largest population of black people outside of Africa in the world. It's also a community relative to the United States that's connected to some African sensibilities, African spirituality, which is not white supremacist, but black in origin. And they're more embodied with a certain level of comfort than black people have in the United States. And like, for example, even the weaves here, in most cases, are the addition of coarse, so-called coarse hair, not straight hair. Now, there are straight-haired Africans here who do that, but they're outnumbered by people who are trying to celebrate being of African descent. But it's not without classically cruel and brutal white supremacist disruption. So there's confused black folks here too. But there's an ability to be black and to be embodied as a person of African descent that has way more rhythm and comfort than black people can even imagine in the United States, because we're completely cut off from anything African and are trained to not want to be bothered and to look at it as, you know, something horrible and bad, and brothers and sisters with flies in their face in Ethiopia. That's what we think of when we think of Africa. And they don't have that kind of mentality here. They have a lot more comfort with being of African descent than we do. Hello? Hello?
I'm checking to make sure she's still...
Yes, thank you very much for answering my question. I have many more questions I'd like to ask, but I understand that there are lots of people who's probably in line to ask you more questions. So thank you for joining us tonight.
Sure. And I'll give my email before it's over, and you can email me with more questions if you like.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Manago, we had a couple other folks who had questions. Do you have time to take a couple more callers?
Absolutely. I just hope this line doesn't break up, but I'm here.
Okay. The person who dialed in last four digits, 7991. 7991, your line should be open.
I just wanted to ask the guest, does he think same gender people, does he think they should raise children?
I think that people who with good parenting skills should raise children. And to be more clear, I have to make contrast. There's a lot of children, black, who are raised by heterosexual people that ruin them. That's quite a possibility if they had same gender-loving parents that didn't know what the heck they were doing and that ruined them. As I spoke about last time I was on Gus's show about the foster care system in this country is full to the brim with dark-skinned black children. And most of them were created by heterosexuals who clearly were not prepared to be a parent. So again, being a good parent is not connected to sexuality. It's connected to parental capacity, and specifically black parental capacity, which is a specific type of parenting. Hello?
Did that answer?
Thank you.
Oh, okay. The person that called in, let's see here. Last four digits, 2089. 2089. Did you have a question for Mr. Manago?
Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Oh, okay, Mr. Manago, how are you? How are you guys?
I'm good.
Right
How are
poorly.
you?
Right poorly.
Oh, okay, good. I had a question. Do you? It's about black-female relationships. I find myself trying to undo the damage of me not, because most black men in America, I think, are programmed not to want to date black women.
I agree.
And yeah, and I grew up in the suburbs, so I'm not really. I find it a hard time to try to want to date or deal with black women who are from other backgrounds. Because I'll date a black woman from the suburbs, but I find it hard that most of the black women are from kind of the lower class and then kind of middle class, and that kind of breeds a little bit of hatred and disgust towards them. How do you think I should undo that? Because I think that's very damaging towards me in the long run.
What's damaging towards you? What's damaging towards you?
I think that, it's damaging towards me because, again, I've called in, like I said, I wanted to be with a black woman, but I find it very hard to want to date them because when I compare them to the black women in my family, they were very conservative and very ladylike because they had a strong Christian background. But when I find that most of the black women have come from impoverished backgrounds and they really don't display some of the qualities that I like, but and this kind of breeds a hatred towards them.
Well, brother, I think, first of all, context is everything. And black women who are not so-called ladylike, whatever that is, are often black women who are in pain, who have struggled, or who have been the child of a person who has struggled. And that does not stop them, no matter how they're acting out, for having a loving, sometimes brilliant and decent person in there somewhere. Sometimes how we transform people out of self-hate or dysfunctional behavior, if indeed it's dysfunctional, is how we treat them and how we act in their presence. It's possible for you to meet a sister who is from a community that's so-called lower class, who's a wonderful, magical person, but you have to engage them and not judge them. Because there's some ladylike people who will cut your throat.
Right.
And the reason you get your throat cut is because you didn't judge them as much as you judging the working class person. Sometimes we turn people off and make them act out by our unconscious behavior. And if you're looking at a working class sister from the side of your neck, that's going to make her act the fool. And you might not even know that you're doing that because you're conditioned a certain way. You mentioned your family, you mentioned these ladylike people, you mentioned these distinctions that create possibly unconscious judgment about working class women. I've come from Watts and Compton. I come from a poor community, so I've met some brilliant gems of human beings who are female from my community. But people looked at them sideways when they said they were from Compton and treated them a certain way, and the sister got defensive. So if you're kind, accepting, loving, you might turn off their anger and find a wonderful person. It can happen. I've seen it happen. You might have to check yourself too, in terms of how what you're provoking in these sisters to make them go into the next spin on you.
Right, that's happened a few times, but I didn't really. I guess it has, and I've tried to. I found some of the roots, but I'm not completely common. Sure. Do you know if anyone in because I stay in California. Do you know of any black psychologists I could talk, or what kind of research are you getting into to kind of solve that problem?
Absolutely. God, what's the brother? There's a sister named Dr. Cheryl Grills, Grills, and there's also a brother. If you email me, I'll get you his name. But there's a brother who's her colleague, who works around these issues to help black people particularly males and females, treat each other better, see each other better, and react to each other better. But what I can say to you, though, as a behavior expert myself, is hang in there, watch your behavior, and look closely without judgment at these sisters. And you're going to find some people very, very appealing despite your judgments if you look closely and don't judge.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for the questions, caller. I know when we had Professor Aird on the program, or Miss Aird on the program with Community Healing Network, she mentioned Dr. Gills. She's with the Association of Black Psychologists. She was saying we should have them on the program to share some information. Get that happen down the road. We had one other person, they had a couple questions they wanted to get in. I just wanted to touch on, this was a couple things you had said earlier, Mr. Manago, when you were saying that sometimes black people are driven to white people, racists, because of the abuse and rejection that they experience from other black people around being a same gender loving person. Right. And that stood out to me because are we saying that black people, the black same gender loving experience with other black people, a significant trait or characteristic of that experience is abuse and rejection? Is that what we're saying?
I'm saying a few things since you're getting specific. Part of abuse is, have you ever been in a relationship with somebody who didn't pay no attention to you or didn't pay enough attention to you and you felt neglected?
Yes.
Okay, well, neglect is painful. Being uncommunicated with somebody that you care about, who you love, feels like abuse. So my point to you is that there's some same-gender-loving people, some, who don't experience explicit, attack, except for that their way of loving and that they exist is not acknowledged, and or they hear jokes about the faggot, the punk, the dyke, the sissy. And it might not even be about them, directed at them, but they hear it and it hurts. And being that black folks, particularly black men, are some of the most insecure men based on justifiable cause and effect in history in this country, you can hear all kinds of abuse coming from. I hate to go get my hair cut. Every time I go get my hair cut, I gotta hear a bunch of bull crap and or do an educational forum because brothers be talking smack. It's either about Jesus or faggots. Interesting combination. So, sometimes this is what you hear. Or when you go to church, when the minister says you're what's that word, abomination? Abomination. I mean, when they call you abominations and stuff, they might not be pointing their finger at you, but when they quote white European King James and Jeffrey Falwell, white folks, and say that you are an abomination for being a homosexual, that's viciously painful and abusive. Just like when somebody gets on one of these calls, talk about anti-sexual. That's abusive. It's dismissive, it's dehumanizing, and it's abusive, regardless of the intent. And it don't do nothing to me because I'm clear about white supremacy. I'm clear on who I am. I'm clear on the cause and effect and why we do what we do. So I don't lose a beat. But everybody, it's not there. You can't make me run the white folks. But a lot of black people do all the time, and you know that.
Okay. Well, I just want to get this in, and I hope that this is in the spirit of what we were saying, rational conversation. In my view, when we use terms and it's phrased that the experience, because the question, and I don't even think you answered the question, because the question I asked was, are we saying that for black same gender loving people, for a significant number of them, the experience is abuse and rejection when dealing with other black people? Is that what we're saying? And I don't think you answered the question.
Yes, I am saying that. What I call myself doing was giving you some nuance because there's nuance and context. So yes, we are saying that, and I want you to understand that abuse is not always active. It could be passive, but it's still abuse. Okay. So I want you to know I like to be explicit. But yes, I would say that, yeah. We're going to talk about it rationally. That in and of itself is abusive.
Okay. I just want to point this out because I think we had touched on this earlier, that just the general, unfortunate, but the general behavior pattern of black people who are suffering, and as Dr. Frances Cress Welsing says, no black people qualify for mental health as long as they're subject to racism, white supremacy. Black people tend to be abusive and tend to reject other black people, including themselves, even if they are not same gender loving. That is just unfortunately a state, and it sounds like there's a lot of that even in Brazil. So for me, I don't hear anyone come out and say, as a white person, my experience with the white community was abuse and rejection as a result of it. Like, I never hear that. It's only black people that I hear where it gets, my experience with the black community was abuse and rejection. And I think that that is anti-black. And I think because those terms, those words are so strong, for me, I don't even think it gives an accurate picture, because I think a lot of black people that are not same gender loving, they have had horror stories going to the barbershop and being name called and picked on and teased. I can sign up first on that list, and I haven't even been to a black barbershop in a while. But that, and even not at the barber, I mean, that's just everyday experience of black people as a result of being victims of white supremacy, picking on one another, whether you're same gender loving or not. And even if you were not same gender loving, you would not escape from being terrorized and picked on by other black people anywhere in the world. That's white supremacy. That's one. And also, because you had said also earlier in the program that you said that one of the reasons, like Jason Collins, he was married to a white woman, and you listed some other folks as well, LZ Granderson. One of the reasons that this happens is because we don't have enough safe spaces for black same gender loving people. And again, it's because I asked you earlier, I said, is abuse, is violence, is that a problem for you from black people? And you said no, but you said the nuance that you gave us. You said the not being heard, not getting rational conversation, not having people respect your views and that sort of. I totally understand that, and that's totally valid. But I experienced that as a black person, and I'm not same gender loving. For me, it sounds very similar.
Gus?
Are you hearing me?
Gus?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, Gus, and I'm not trying to be funny when I say this, but I'm a black man, just like you. And when people see me walk down the street, and they see you walk down the street, maybe you more than me, maybe me more than you, I don't know, because I don't know what you look like. But people assume I'm heterosexual. So I get to hear heterosexual conversations all the time, because everywhere I go, that's the assumption. So I say that because what you hear and experience as a black man, and the teasing that you experience that's separate from sexuality, I experience that too. Because when I go to the barbershop, people, now that they saw something on TV or whatever, they don't know. So I get that, and I get to hear the relentless black male insecure obsession with the manhood contest. Who's a man, who's a punk, who's a sissy, and what a punk and a faggot is doing, etc. So black people who are black males, for example, who are same gender loving, get what you just got finished saying, you get and some. So it's not exactly the same thing, though it is the same thing in terms of that both parties experience some same things, but you probably will have a different reaction to going to the barbershop or going anywhere and hear faggot and punk or anti-sexual than I do. But the point I want to make clear, at the point of being redundant, is that what black men go through, I go through, because I'm a black man. When the cops come, they don't go, oh, what's your sexuality? Because we're going to have a different decision for you. They don't do that. They don't know what Oscar Grant's or Sean Bell's or James Bird's sexuality was.
Absolutely.
So there are some nuances that go beyond just being heterosexual that you go through as a same gender loving person.
Okay. That's all valid. I would just say, with, again, the verbiage that's being used, if what we're talking about is name calling, I understand name calling. It definitely has an impact. I'm not trying to minimize that, but if what we're talking about is name calling, this is not actual physical violence. This is not actually someone putting your hands on, in my view, particularly because that's pretty much what's being said 24/7 under white supremacy anyway, that black people are dangerous. That's what our white guest wrote a whole book about that tomorrow. Black people are dangerous, hooligans, thugs. We need to do something about them. When there is a continued narrative that in addition to that, black people are homophobic and it's unsafe to be around them. Even black people who are same gender loving, it's unsafe for them to even be around other black people. I just feel like it's not giving an accurate picture. If it's name calling, then we should just be specific and say that. I feel like using terms that saying that it's unsafe, we don't have a safe environment for same gender loving black people, and the experience is one of abuse and rejection. I just feel like that plays right into the same white supremacist narrative that just talks about how defective and violent black people are, always will be worldwide.
That's why, Gus, when I talk to white folks, which is extremely rare, by the way, but when I do, I don't say those kind of things about black people. I'm talking to you on this radio show. I'm talking to another black man about and answering his questions on this issue. But no, I understand what you're saying like I know my name. And I do what I can in most contexts to not feed into anti-black dehumanizing white supremacist norms and creation stories about black people. And even earlier in this conversation, I said physical violence, I don't see it hardly at all between black people. But the emotional stuff, and I agree with you. I absolutely agree with you that the emotional stuff that we do to each other out of self-hate and acting out goes beyond sexuality. But you have no idea what it's like to be a same-gender loving man. You don't know what that's like. And there's an extra sensitivity and an extra thing in the universe to deal with in the side of an all-black context when you're a same-gender loving person on top of being black. It's just the truth.
I do not disagree. I agree completely with that sentiment. Yeah, I agree completely with that sentiment. There was one other person who had a question. I want to make sure they get their question in, and then you can give out your email before we get out of here. I think this is Klondike Mike. You said you did have a follow-up question. Klondike Mike.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's been really interesting. It's been really great hearing very, very articulate. Holy moly. Sorry, I guess, you know what, I could ask you a million questions, but I know you got to go, right? So, but I just... No,
I don't got to go nowhere.
Okay. Well, then, yeah, no. Okay. Yeah, exactly. I guess it sounds like you're talking about being victimized as a same gender loving man. But the thing that I notice, and I think we've already kind of touched on this, is that the same gender loving man seems to be more comfortable than a black man these days. Like, to be a black man is more frightening than to be a same gender loving man. And I don't know, but like, if you listen to like the way that a lot of black men talk, like, or in my opinion and myself, let me just talk about myself, but when I'm around other people, I can be very timid and very shy, like in person and stuff. And I find with same gender loving people that they tend to be a lot more just out there. I think. Yeah. Well,
I'm sorry. Go on.
Yeah. No. Totally. What do you think about because the thing is that I just think that the real attack is on masculinity. Like, and I understand it is probably scary to be a same gender loving person in the black community as well. You probably do get some stuff there as well. But I just noticed that, like, as far as, like, you know, you have all this support from black women, right? I think that is
I would say.
Yep.
I'm sorry. Go on.
I was just going to say that is like that's an example of I think, because you're less threatening to everybody in some ways. Like, you know, you're even less threatening to some males who are struggling with their confusion towards other black women and stuff like that. Like, you're less threatening to the women. The women love having you around. You talk or whatever. Like, I think the real attack is on masculinity. Like, What do you think? And then I had just a quick question if you have, but you can say something if you want.
Okay. I think I hear what you're saying, but I have to, and I hope I remember what I want to say, but I got to say that it's interesting that you would say that same-gender loving men have all this bravado and drama that other black men don't have. That's completely untrue. As you already know, if you think about it or if you've seen it, brothers, period, be given drama, hyper-masculinity, walking hard, hip-hop, just giving all kinds of performances on the streets of the United States. Brothers, period. And I wouldn't say for a minute that same-gender loving brothers give a public performance more than heterosexual brothers. I see brothers performing all the time on the streets about being a man, walking all hard, about to break their heels, trying to walk hard and look all bad. So that's not just same-gender loving people. Number one. Number two, I didn't say please don't get in your mind that I've been getting all kinds of just endless support from women. I think it was you who asked me the question who I got most of my support from. I told you it's from women, but it's not like hundreds of thousands of women. This is a small group of people in terms of meaningful support. So let me make that clear. It's more women than men, but there's men, including heterosexual men, involved in that group. So I don't want to paint the wrong picture here in terms of tons of women coming to support me, because that's not true. The third thing is that there's an attack on masculinity, absolutely. And guess what? I'm involved in that attack on masculinity too. I'm a so-called masculine man, so I'm always dealing with attacks on masculinity. And the gay identified community cannot stand masculine black men. There's been articles written about me calling me the most dangerous man because I'm pro-black and I'm so-called masculine. So like I told Gus earlier in this conversation, what black men go through, I go through. I'm not a separate creature. And none of us see what each other do.
You're not a threat. You're not a sexual threat, though. Like you're not producing more black babies. Like you're not a potential competitor for white women. You know, and I mean those are two separate topics, but relating to the same thing. You know, I don't know, like how. Anyways, I know the time's up, but I was going to say what is how much does a person's sex, like their physical sex, determine their sexuality? You know, like how much of being a man or a woman determines your preference, your sexual preference, and is the rest just massive confusion?
I don't know. I mean, I can't speak to confusion because I'm clear as a bell, so I don't know. I mean, there's some confused people out there who are both same-gender loving and heterosexual. And like I said in one of the first shows, there are artificially embedded homosexuals and artificially made heterosexuals. Both people are faking it for somebody's approval or the result of trauma or something. So that exists, but it's not just homosexuals. In terms of confusion.
Yeah, but anyways, this could go on forever.
I want to, man, look, I appreciate the question, so I want to make sure we're clear here and that you're clear about me, because when I hear somebody say that I'm more acceptable, all the crap I go through and have gone through in my life as a black man, that's amazing to hear. Because I definitely don't feel more acceptable, but I will say this, which I think is different or has more nuance than what you're saying. Homosexual men, particularly feminine homosexual black men and black women, do better in this society than heterosexual or masculine black men.
Mm-hmm.
Homosexual, particularly feminine homosexual black men, are way more acceptable, are celebrated and lauded by white folks.
Why do you think that?
And that's because you know what that is. That's because they look at these black men as controllable, as compromised, as more willing to do their bidding, and as intercourseable. I want to say effable, that F word, but I don't think I can use that kind of word on the radio or whatever, but they look at them as screwable. They have access to them, and they can control them as far as they're concerned. They look at black women the same way. But I tell you one thing, they don't look at Cleo Manago like that. I'm always under their attack. And there's other brothers who they don't look at like that. But when it comes to these Like that young brother that was on the show that Gus played earlier, who was talking about voguing, whatever. This might be very unfair to say, but he sounds like a brother that white folks would be very comfortable with and be entertained by. But I'm not one of those brothers. And there's heterosexual brothers who are chasing white women and chasing whiteness and can't wait to get up in white people's face, like Rod, whatever the basketball player, whatever his name is, that they love too. They love anybody who they see clearly that they can manipulate, or that they assume they can manipulate because of how they operate in the world. But I'm not one of those people. They're constantly trying to destroy me. Constantly. They might have been the one that disconnected the phone earlier. So this stuff has nuance that we need to be clear about. Because I've never heard nobody say that knew they was talking about that I wasn't a threat. And I'm not interested in being a threat, just like you're probably not. And most black men aren't interested in being a threat. But we're treated that way by white supremacy when we don't, when they can't rule us.
I think it'll be a lovely day when we can have, but then again, we're talking about one example here, so I'm trying to keep myself level-headed here, right? But it'll be great when there are an abundance of heterosexual, masculine, male role models for black men and women,
Well, I'll tell you what. Mm-hmm. I agree with you. I would love to see an abundance of black men in media loving black women. I would love to see an abundance of heterosexual men in respectful ways that resonate into powerful inspiration for black people and black children and black heterosexuals. But and now that you say what I'm going to say, but I'm going to make a point beyond you using what you said. Creating that sunny day, or that wonderful day that you talked about, is not going to occur by black people attacking me or the likes of me. It's going to occur by black people demanding justice and what Eric Holder claimed he was going to do in terms of looking at why black men go to prison more than anybody else. The Attorney General was claiming that he was going to address that. Until we look at the systemic attack on black men and black male and female relationships and black people relating to each other, until we do that, instead of some of these clowns, pardon my name calling, but these people that focus on gender-loving people, you're not going to have that bright and sunny day. Because Cleo Manago and the likes of him is not the ones getting in the way of that day. It's institutionalized white supremacy. And institutionalized white supremacy can be conquered. It can have less power, but not while we're conflicted as a people. While we're conflicted as a people at each other's throat, white folks going to have a good day. They're going to constantly show black men looking crazy. And part of a comedy skit, every time you see a black woman and man and woman together on TV, they're going to constantly show black same-gender loving men chasing a white boy. They're going to do that until we demand different. And we can. That's why I told the story of the white gay movement earlier in terms of them being people that demanded justice from the society, and they got it. We can do the same thing, but we have to be more unified. And these obsessions with same-gender loving people and calling them anti-sexual and all these crazy things keeps us destabilized and unable to be collectively armed against white supremacy. It's just a fact. But I agree with you. Look, when I see heterosexual couples, black on black these days, you could ask my friends. I just get excited, like, oh man, there's two black people loving each other. Get a camera. Because it's like seeing a unicorn, particularly if you live on the east or west coast of the United States, or in parts of Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. So, in my opinion, some of us who are obsessed with same-gender loving people because of King James and manhood and security, we're barking up the wrong tree. We need to be coming together as a people and being in dialogue with each other. Because some of us have the same aspirations, and I have some similar aspirations to you.
You hung out enough. There was a person that called in, 2658. You have a quick question for Mr. Manago, 2658.
Yes, sir. Greetings. I have a question because I believe the term that I've been hearing, gender-loving males, is that correct?
No, somehow I think you do know the correct term, but it's same gender loving.
You said it's not gender. I just kind of like tuned in, and I've been hearing a term.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
That sounds confusing to me.
Same gender loving someone at the same gender of yourself.
Same gender loving.
Yes.
My question is, what is there any sexual connection? What does any sexuality have to do with the phrase?
The phrase is a term that's used to describe and self-reference among homosexual black people, as well as some bisexual black people use the term. Just like the term gay in and of itself has no sexual nothing, but people constructed it and added sexuality to it and created a movement. Gay don't mean sex. Gay means happy, but it was changed by a political group. They're using words instead of letting the words use them. Same gender loving is a reference among black people who are homosexual and bisexual to describe themselves.
Okay, is love and sex is not saying the same thing, is it?
Just like gay and sex ain't saying the same thing. It's what you make of it. Just like black and skin ain't the same thing. We ain't black. We're brown. So it's all how you intend to use it.
Yeah, well, I'm just thinking of in terms of accuracy, and it sounds confusing because, for example, I stay under the same roof with a 17-year-old that I have a deep affection for, but sex has nothing to do with it. It happens to be my offspring. You know, so I'm just explaining to you, sir, on why the term seems confusing to me.
Well, I don't think it's confusing. I think you call your son. It's clear. You don't call your son same gender loving because he's not. And even though you love your son and he's of the same gender, you still call him son. You don't call yourself a son-loving man, but you love your son. So this is just language, and people using language to construct something that's going to hopefully be constructive. I think this is definitely getting nitpicky here because you probably call him Dante, whatever his name is, and you don't get into some kind of label of your son because son is good enough. Same gender loving has an intention behind it that people understand, and those who understand it, or those who don't want to refer themselves as gay, that are black, they use the term same gender loving, and they appreciate the term loving being in the terminology because gay definitely does not induce concepts of love for them. So we know what we're doing.
Okay, so sex and love is not the same thing, correct?
Well, first of all, I think you've heard the term making love, and that usually refers to sex. Now, people can they can get nitpicky and say, well, we're going to go make sex. But most people say making love, even if love is not involved.
Well, that term is confusing to me, too, making love. That's confusing to me. And I don't use it myself personally.
But you know what it means. Right, but you know what it means, though. Whether you use it or not, and whether it's confusing or not, you know what it means.
No, one reason why I don't use it because I don't know what it means.
Okay, well, I know what it means for me.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, okay.
And the thousands and thousands of people across the world who call themselves same gender loving, they know what it means. And one thing they don't know what it means for them is gay because they see it as white. Here in Britain, I've heard same gender loving black people say, "Thank you for the same gender loving movement because we got tired of being sucked in or people trying to suck us into these British and German gay things so they can exploit us. Thank you for giving us an alternative." And I tell them, you're welcome. So those who are interested in being confused are not.
Did that answer your question, caller?
Not really.
Well, I think the answer to this question is it's confusing and agree, and I don't agree with it. So But I hear you, brother. I mean, you have a different meaning of love, and that's cool. But I think it's a game to say you don't call your son same-gender loving. Well, of course you don't. You call him by his name, and you call him son. Or if you feel like it, you call him yourself a son-loving father. I mean, but I think you might find that ridiculous.
I'm just saying from a standpoint because I don't leave things up to assumption. And
well, when it comes to SGL, you don't have to assume. I just told you what it meant. It means.
You're right. You told me what it means to you, but you've been including others in it, as though you're aware of what they think. And
well, I'm not aware that everybody on the planet thinks, but I do know that identifying the same gender love is a deliberate identification. I know that it's not passive like gay. It's not just taking on the same old thing that white folks offer to you like gay. It's another decision. Just like when we stopped being Negroes and decided to be black, that was another decision of self-determination. And when we call ourselves black and this African American, all this kind of stuff, Afro, all this stuff, have been black people attempting to create themselves and to love themselves in their own image and have self-determination. That's what I'm doing too. I mean, I know that Africa ain't really Africa, and that it's Alkebulan and Kemet and other things like in Nubia. I know that. But it's a process, healing and loving yourself as a black person under white supremacy. It's a process. So you call yourself all kinds of stuff on the way. That's why we know. That's why we went from products 3/5 of a man to African American, because we are in the process.
Did you have another question, caller?
No, sir.
And I think this is Princess, our last caller. Princess, did you have a question for Mr. Cleo Manago? Your line should be open, Princess.
Yes, I will try and be real quick. I just had a real quick question. Earlier you were talking about, how some people in the black community use names and or call same gender loving people or gay people names, and verbal abuse and all that stuff. And I just couldn't help but think, it just seems like, I don't know whether it's a part of the whole gay agenda, but why is it that whether it's the LGBT or SGLPQ, I don't know, why is it that you guys always, I guess it's like picking on the weakest link, because you come at our what's left of our community as if we are the ones that instigated all this. Like as if we are the ones that created these names, you can go back into this country's history and see how they felt about gay people, queers, and all that other stuff. That comes from white people. That is not of us. So I'm just trying to understand, when Gus was asking earlier in regards to, the name calling in regards to black people. Why is that? Like the anti-bullying legislation, why aren't people in your organization, or, I pretty much already know the answer, but I'm just curious as to whether or not you say that you're working towards justice, and I don't know. My other question, though, was... hold
one question at a time, because y'all keep working me with all these multi-level questions. Okay. So we can answer the first one?
Yes, sir.
To the extent that, first of all, I advise you to do research on me. I mean, it ain't difficult. Press Google, and lots of things will come up, videos, everything. It's not really accurate to put me in the category of those people that you just got finished talking about at all. I don't push the gay agenda. I don't even act like the gay agenda. As a matter of fact, one of the first places that I think...
There's a gay agenda? Okay, I'm sorry. What? You acknowledge that there is a gay agenda?
Oh, are you kidding? Ray Charles can see that as the gay agenda.
I'm just.
Yes, there's a gay agenda, but I'm trying to get you to understand that I have nothing to do with it. And I was getting ready to make the point that one of the first places that I think Gus heard about me, and he can correct me if I'm wrong, is when the white gay community attacked Roland Martin, I went off. And I said, no, you're not going to be racist as you are and attack one black man after another while nobody exposes your blackophobia, because they use the word homophobia, I use the word blackophobia. And I don't buy into, you said some earlier in your what you mentioned about how white people created all of this, and you're absolutely right. And I'd say that. There's an article that Gus just read from, a excerpt from, that breaks that all down in terms of my perspective of this whole thing. And I think that I don't use the word homophobia. I use the word anti-homosexual, because the word homophobia is a white word that is not dimensional enough to describe what's going on with black people around post-oppression issues, manhood attack issues, masculinity anxiety, the symptoms of having been brutally attacked and still being attacked as males and as black people in this country. The term homophobia is limited. It doesn't cover that. Anti-homosexual specific to folks that are homosexual, but some of the anti-homosexual behavior in the black community is, in my opinion, is not really just anti-homosexual behavior. It's anti-no men behavior. Where the hell are men at behavior? What's happened to my black man behavior, which I think is a legitimate concern that does not fit under homophobia. But what you just got finished saying earlier about what they're doing with LGBT, blah, 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 that has nothing to do with my work, with what I talk about, with my organization, and things that I do. And I agree with what you're saying. And I think to some extent, Gus and I talked about earlier about how black people are painted as viciously and monstrously and particularly anti-homosexual, and that is not true. White people are way more anti-homosexual than black people, but the white gay community has their own power base, so they look freer. But no, they are going through it too. But they are white in America, so they got more resources to make it look like they're, like they don't have as much problems as we do, but they do. In terms of the anti-homosexual attacks on homosexual people.
So, are you for gay marriage?
That's not. I don't have a dog in that fight. That doesn't. Well, let me answer it like this. I believe that two people who love each other and decide to get married should have access to all those domestic things, which I don't know much about, the domestic coverage that they get from the government. Like when a sexual-loving partner dies, instead of the family coming all in, anti-homosexual, taking everything and saying F that faggot, and not giving a damn about the love they have with each other, that's wrong. That happens all the time. There was a brother that was ran over by a truck. You guys heard about that brother 2 years ago. That was minding his own business and got ran over by some white boys in his truck, and they back over him. Y'all know about that, right?
James Craig Anderson.
He was sent into loving. And when he died and was murdered like that, his partner, who was grieving because he loved this man was the love of his life.
White man.
They came in and started snatching stuff and didn't give a damn about the fact they loved each other. And by the way, those white boys who killed him, they didn't ask him what his sexuality was before they rolled over and murdered him. They just knew he was black. So when it comes to being for gay marriage, the terminology bothers me. The whole system of marriage and where it came from, being very literal like I am, I'm not with all of that. So that's not my issue. I'm not doing a gay marriage campaign, but I do think that two people love each other, want all that domestic stuff, they should be able to have it.
So you don't like the verbiage behind it, but you don't mind the benefits?
My answer is this: it's not my issue. I'm not an advocate in terms of going around talking about it. It's not something that is an issue for me to get behind. But I do support people who love each other. Like what happened to that brother, whose name I forgot again, that Gus just mentioned. What happened to him shouldn't have happened to him. Him and his partner had built a life with each other and had a partnership with each other. And when he was murdered, his family threw him to the side. That happened to me too when my partner died of AIDS in the 90s, who I was deeply in love with, who was the love of my life. His family didn't want me to come to the funeral. That's horrendous and evil from my perspective. And something that's going to counter that from happening, I'm with it. But gay marriage is not on top of my priority list in terms of my activity. But white folks got that covered anyway. They don't need me.
Okay, but I mean, what about all these kids that are being molested by all these white gay people? You know, I'm just confused because, I mean, to be quite honest, I just see LGBT equals SG, LP, like racism equals white supremacy. That's kind of how I compute it. It's all the same thing. So I'm trying to understand, on the one hand, if it benefits you financially, you're saying that you don't, like the verbiage, but it's going to benefit you financially. And I understand.
I never said that.
No, okay. Well,
I never said
I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but my interpretation, and I'm not just singling you out, I just see this across the board with, overall, all this stuff that's going on behind, gays or same gender loving people. My sister is a lesbian, by the way, and there's no ill will towards her or anything. She knows where I stand, and I know where she stands. But the love is still there. But I just find it strange because 8 years ago, me and her would be able to call each other, say that's gay or as stupid. But now, I mean, you get slapped with saying that's a hateful slur and all this stuff. So I'm just confused. I mean, do gay people or same gender loving people care about how these kids are being treated by supposed gay people? I mean,
Well, let me ask you this. So, do you care what the sexuality of the molester is? Is that your concern?
No, but I know it's harbored in that lifestyle. I'm a victim of it.
But see, that's not true. See, you over there reacting, and you said you were confused, and I agree, because the stuff you're saying, there's a lot of different dimensions to it. It's not one thing about calling people gay and talking to your sister 7 years ago, et cetera, and molesting children. You're putting a lot of things together. But the bottom line is that that's not true, that homosexuals in large numbers are adopting children and molesting them. That's not true. Now, what is true, that's not true. It is true that tons of children are being molested, yes, but it's not true that most of the molesters are homosexual. That is not even remotely true.
Okay.
It's also true that women are being molested left and right in this country all the time, daily, and most of the time it's a man that's doing it. Most of the people that's raping, period, are men, whether the victim is male or female. But this is not. That's what you're saying is not true. About what you implied earlier in your question was something along the lines of homosexuals adopting children and molesting them. There's no pathology or pattern of that rings true as an epidemic. That's just not true.
So what's all the stuff going on in the Catholic?
Now it is such. Say that again.
So what's all this behavior going on in the Catholic Church then?
Now that's another topic. That's the church, and what I'm going to say is going to be controversial. I know what I'm going to say is going to be controversial, and I don't think Gus has time for us to interrogate it, but I'm down. But look, churches are full of, and I don't think everybody in the church is what I'm getting ready to say is true for everybody, but churches are full of self-hating homosexuals trying to get to heaven despite themselves. If you go to black churches, to a lot of them, particularly the big ones, they see the choir, it's full of homosexuals and women with eating disorders, overweight women in many cases. People who are trying to struggle to survive in a country and world that's difficult for them. So you have a choir full of same-loving people who believe they're going to hell because King James said so, who are trying to sing themselves into heaven. So when it comes to the priests, etc., a lot of them people went to do that to try to get rid of their sexuality because of self-hate. So you're going to have folks acting out if they congregate somewhere around something that cannot be repressed, which is a sexuality. You're going to have them doing dysfunctional control things, taking advantage of kids to act out on innocent people because they done went crazy because of repression. Like Michael Jackson went crazy and cut his face off because of oppression. Oppressed people do crazy stuff, including rape.
So do you believe
including molestation.
So do you believe that gay people are born gay, or is that a behavior that is induced?
Well, I don't think nobody's born gay. Gay, excuse me for being literal, but gay was created in 1969. The first folks were being born before 1969. So you could be born and then call yourself gay later, but you're not born calling yourself gay. No, that's a white construction. Now, whether you're born a homosexual or heterosexual, that's a very dimensional topic. I don't know if you know this, but most babies start off female before they become whatever they're going to be. Most babies and embryos start off developing as a female. So the development of an embryo to a child is a very dimensional process. I could speak about me personally. I've been knowing about that I was same-gender loving all of my life. Now, saying something as finite as that you were born that way, that's my assumption. But how do you prove it? That's my assumption. But I think the reason why people keep trying to prove it is the same reason black people get excited when the first lady is black, or when a black person does this and a black person does that. Because of oppression, we get excited that something happens that might make people leave us the hell alone. So you got homosexuals trying to be legitimized and trying to find proof that they were born that way so people can leave them alone. That's what that's about. But I'm not involved in that. I don't know. All I know is about me, and I've interviewed thousands and thousands of same-gender loving people and heterosexual people. And people discover themselves and find out what they are, and that's what they are. And then you have to confuse people who are molested and who do go to prison, whose sexuality becomes distracted and transformed or expanded, if you will. But then there's people like me and the those people that I know who are same-gender living people, just like the people I know who are heterosexual people. That's what they are. And this society does not provide safe space to just be what they are, so people be acting out. All this black-on-black crime, they use the white supremacist term, like those that don't use white-on-white, Asian-on-Asian, so-called black-on-black crime is black people acting out under oppression. So all oppressed groups are bound to act out and do some crazy, murderous, stupid stuff, including homosexuals. But there's still no molestation epidemic of children among homosexuals. That is not true. Now, there are homosexual molesters of children, absolutely. Killers of children, all kinds of stuff of children. But if you're saying that everybody who's homosexual is going to molest somebody and take your eyes off the heterosexual, you'll put your child at risk.
Princess, thank you for the questions. I wanted to stop because I wanted to not take up all of Mr. Manago's evening. Justice, she did say she wasn't done. She wanted to get in a question. Justice, if you had something you wanted to ask Mr. Manago, feel free. And after that, we'll wrap things up. Justice, you there?
Yes, I am. I read...
Hi, Justice.
Hello. I read an article... I read an article on HuffingtonPost.com. I quote, as to why he opted, he meaning Jason Collins, to address his sexuality now. Collins says that he was partly inspired by the Boston Marathon bombings, adding that it takes an enormous amount of energy to guard such a big secret. What inspired you to openly express in public the way you behave sexually?
The way I behave sexually. That's a funny question. They come with some questions for you, Justice. I'm telling you. Must be a scientist behind you. Anyway, all this behave stuff, it's another question that's loaded with some implications that I don't agree with. Like there's some particular behavior going on here. But if I understand your question, I'm here on this call answering these questions because I was invited to. When I address issues of same-gender loving people, on the occasions that I do, because it's not my primary focus, is to educate or to prevent violence or misunderstanding or conflict between people based on sexuality, in particular same-gender loving sexuality. Otherwise, I'm doing something else. I'm an activist against oppression. I'm a gender-loving man as well as a black man. So I'm willing to be an activist around any kind of oppression that I'm clear is going on. So I come out and behave as a black man too, and deal with that in public forums as well, when I'm trying to counter oppression and white supremacy. So when I bring up being a gender-loving person, it's typically for the same reason, to counter conflict and things that are hurtful to black people and ignorance that leads to black wars with each other that are unnecessary and getting in the way of a focusing on the real enemy.
Okay,
I'm finished.
Okay. Thank you for coming on the program to share some of your time with us. So thank you.
You're very welcome. It's good to talk to you, young sister.
Mm-hmm.
Do I give my email now, Gus?
Yes, you can give your email. Also, I wanted to let listeners know, James Craig Anderson, it was reported very early on in the James Craig Anderson case that he also is same gender loving, so-called. They of course use the term homosexual or gay. I believe that the report that I saw originally, and this is back in 2011 when this first happened, that his partner was a white man. I'm trying to confirm that. I might be wrong, but I believe his partner was a white man. I'm just trying to get the confirmation because I think I saw that in the original reports. If anyone beats me to it, you can post it on the Facebook page, but I think that might be another victim that the racists got for whatever reason. Anywho, email address, Mr. Manago.
Well, I didn't know that. That's interesting. If you find out to be so, let me know just for my own knowing. But I didn't know what his partner was. I had no assumptions about him, but I certainly didn't know he was white. But I knew I knew the brother was same gender loving. And I'll say this: if we stop, if we create more space of affirmation and engagement and love for our diverse community, including same gender loving people, less of that will happen. My email address is my name, Cleo, like Cleopatra, C-L-E-O, Manago. Looks like Manago, M-A-N-A-G-O. You can see it on Gus's website, cleomanago@gmail.com. cleomanago@gmail.com. Feel free to write me with any questions, any further information, to get in touch with regarding my work, to learn more about the Black Men's Exchange and the Moss Institutes for Health, Wellness, and Culture, and anything that you want to talk about regarding relevant issues that are constructive for black folks. I'm down. Thank you.
You can check out that report authored by Mr. Manago. When will a high-profile African American come out as black? When will black people come out as united? Check it out online. Great information talking about the system of racism, white supremacy, and the so-called gay rights agenda. Very thankful you could share some of your Sunday evening with us, Mr. Manago. Always a pleasure to exchange views. I hope this qualifies as another rational conversation on the topic.
Well, I think it had rationality to it for the most part, yes. And the intentions were definitely rational, and I really and honestly do appreciate it. Thank you.
Glad to hear it. Glad to hear it.
And today is Malcolm X's birthday anniversary, so we should honor our brother. And of course, we're mourning his grandson. But on the bright side, he did live, and he was born today.
Well said. Well said. And even in that, with his grandson's murder, which we talked about before, I think one of our listeners, Roberto King, a.k.a. Bruce Fine, she pointed out that they made a point of mentioning that he died in the vicinity of a gay club in Mexico. They pointed out, I think the word that they used, it was the diversify, it was something that was close to diversity. This was the name of the area where his body was found, where this whole thing went down, and she thought that was interesting as well, particularly given the recent publication from Dr. Marble Manning on Malcolm X and the assertion that he also was involved in same gender loving so-called homosexual activity. Very interesting. Very interesting.
Well, all I'll say about that, and we can talk about Malcolm later in terms of the sexuality, is that don't believe nothing they telling you about that boy's murder. You know, they gave 3 or 4 stories, exactly. And they didn't get their lies straight until later. He was thrown off a building in Tijuana, blah blah blah. I'm very suspicious.
Amen. I think pretty much everyone that I have talked to who knows anything about it has echoed that same suspicion. It just seems like more of white people practicing racism, white supremacy, and generational terrorism against victims who have worked against their efforts. We will definitely have you back on the broadcast down the road, Mr. Manago. Keep up the excellent work, and we will be in touch soon. Take excellent care.
Thanks for the invitation, Gus. I appreciate it, man.
Yes, sir. Context of White Supremacy. Right. Have a great evening, sir.
You do the same. Good night.
Bye.
Context of White Supremacy. Compensated for the tech glitches and everything. He said he had a power outage too. He emailed me while he was out. Power outage in the middle of the program. I think those tornadoes were going down this weekend as well. The weather has been really acting a fool on the plantation. We will be back tomorrow. Same program time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, and 5 p.m. Pacific. Colin Flaherty, racist suspect. Again, he wrote the book, White Girl Bleed a Lot. Has a website by the same name. Check it out. See what he has to say. I think he's made some of the talk show rounds promoting his book and talking about how crazy and violent and dangerous Negroes are. Colin Flaherty. Even Opie and Anthony, if you can find it, Opie and Anthony did a review of his book, giving him an enthusiastic 2 thumbs up, and they talked about it, I believe, on one of their programs. I'm trying to see if I can find that exact episode to check out what they had to say, but you know Opie and Anthony, they are no friends of black people. Anywho, tomorrow, tune in. Always fun to have white people on the program. Should be a constructive investment of time. 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. I think we talked enough. We already did our 3 hours. If you all have comments, thoughts you want to share on the program, make notes. We can share later. I was even going to give my 2 cents on Kanye West's Saturday Night Live performance. You heard his you actually heard his second performance at the beginning of the broadcast. Him doing New Slaves, which is off his upcoming album. His first performance was Black Skinhead. Now, to really get the impact of this, you got to watch the video because there's some imagery going on behind him. Like there's flashing pictures on a big screen behind him while he's performing. I think, and again, all of this got to be kept in context. This is the same program that has been running racist, trifling, tacky humor for decades. This is the same program that brought us Eddie Murphy as Buckwheat, that last year, just weeks after he had been buried, was mocking the death of Trayvon Martin in a skit with Kanye West and Kim Kardashian. Same network that had Jamie Foxx on, doing the How Black Is That white people got really upset about towards the end of 2012. Just a couple weeks ago, they mocked the death of Hugo Chavez. They had Justin Timberlake on, and he was pretending to be Elton John, who is also same gender-loving, so-called homosexual. But they mocked the death of Hugo Chavez. I believe he is a non-white male. Just a long record of trifling, racist conduct. I would also say, keep in mind, since this is the week that O.J. Simpson has resurfaced in the U.S. national attention, Kanye West, after Hurricane Katrina, coming on national television and saying that George Bush doesn't care about black people. I know white people have not forgotten that, and they certainly have not forgotten the way that he disparaged the pale young white damsel Taylor Swift at the 2009 MTV Awards. So just to keep that in mind in terms of how white people feel about Mr. Kanye West and his performance. Him getting racist suspect Kim Kardashian pregnant will not be far from their minds either. I know some people were pondering whether or not Mr. West's performance was a constructive act, performance against racism. I will just say that it is my view that very powerful white people decide what content will air on Saturday Night Live, and they tend to pick content that supports the business of white supremacy. We'll be back tomorrow. Replace white supremacy with justice as soon as possible. It has been time. We will be back soon. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Context of White Supremacy, signing out.
I'm a victim, brother.
You're a victim.
I'm a victim of 400 years of conditioning.
Shut up.
The man has programmed my conditioning. Even my conditioning has been conditioned.